Chapter 2268. Just as everyone thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would not be able to restrain her temper, Bailey Hongzhuang's face suddenly broke into a puzzling smile. Shen Xiuhan, I didn't expect that with your usual sanctimonious appearance, you would actually use such methods to destroy a practitioner's confidence. Once these words were said, Shen Xiuhan's expression changed abruptly, as they had not expected Bailey Hongzhuang to say such words. But this kind of method is useless against me. I have walked through the ridicule of countless wretched people. My confidence is not something that can be destroyed by someone of your standard. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was chilly. As the head of an aristocratic family in her past life, what kind of things had she not experienced, and she was extremely familiar with such methods. Usually, only she would use such methods to deal with others. If others wanted to use such methods to deal with her, it was absolutely impossible. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the disciples present were all stunned. This Bailey Hongzhuang's way of doing things really could not be understood with common sense. But after Bailey Hongzhuang's reminder, those disciples who did not understand Shen Xiuhan's true meaning instantly understood and could not help but be shocked. Among them, not many had Bailey Hongzhuang's reaction ability, and they must have already fallen for Shen Xiuhan's earlier provocation. In a moment, everyone's impression of Shen Xiuhan had changed rapidly. Bailey Hongzhuang, what rubbish are you talking about? Shen Xiuhan saw the change in the crowd's attitude and couldn't help but start to panic. He had not expected Bailey Hongzhuang to be so quick-witted. His performance was extremely natural, and most people would not notice this point. It looked like he had still underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. Cut the crap. You have yet to see my real ability of Bailey Hongzhuang. I will let you see who is the real trash. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was cold, her eyes deep and cold. For this kind of self-righteous guy, she could only crush him without any leeway. The power of the blood qi field erupted once again. The blood qi quickly spread throughout the entire battle arena, not giving Shen Xiuhan any chance to unleash his full strength. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang gestured to Xiao He and Xiao Bai with her eyes. Then, she quickly made hand seals with both hands. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, Shen Xiuhan's gaze turned even colder. He had stayed in Tiangang's sect for so long and only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was the most troublesome one. If he allowed Bailey Hongzhuang to continue developing like this, he did not know when Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to replace his position in the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Thinking back to when Bailey Hongzhuang had first arrived at the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall, Bailey Hongzhuang had caught up so much in less than a year's time. If he gave Bailey Hongzhuang another year's time, he was afraid that Bailey Hongzhuang would surpass him. This was not something he wanted to see. Since Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to compete with him now, he would take advantage of this opportunity to severely injure Bailey Hongzhuang. In the next moment, the energy in Shen Xiuhan's body surged wildly. His eyes were tainted with madness. He wanted to unleash his strongest martial technique and let Bailey Hongzhuang know the difference between them. Blood of the Vermilion Bird. Shen Xiuhan shouted. The fiery red energy once again engulfed him. A terrifying wave of energy instantly lingered around him. Chapter 2269. The terrifying energy seemed to evoke the deepest fear in everyone's hearts. It was like a flood or a ferocious beast attacking, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. Shen Xiuhan, who was surrounded by the fiery red energy, was like a flaming giant, invincible. Looking at Shen Xiuhan, the disciples could not help but gasp. They did not expect Shen Xiuhan's ultimate move to be so powerful. I remember that the blood of the Vermilion Bird is the hardest Earth rank martial skill to learn in the Four Halls. However, its power is even more shocking than ordinary Earth rank martial skills. I have never seen a Vermilion Bird Palace Hall disciple use the blood of the Vermilion Bird before. Could Shen Xiuhan be the only Vermilion Bird Palace Hall disciple who has mastered the blood of the Vermilion Bird? This time, Bailey Hongzhuang is really in danger. Shen Xiuhan, this guy is really abnormal. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the fiery red energy around Shun Xiuhan. After feeling the terrifying power, she understood that the blood of the vermilion bird was even more powerful than the black tortoise palace hall's azure waves. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. You chose to do so yourself. Shun Xiuhan's gaze was cold and sinister. Now he saw Bailey Hongzhuang as a thorn in his side. He had never had any sympathy for the weak. He also had no respect for the strong, because he wanted to be the strongest. Put away your high and mighty attitude. Do you really think that you were a big shot? Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. This guy was probably delusional. He thought that he was invincible and had the best martial skills. Even someone of D-Bachan status was not as arrogant as Shun Xiuhan. It really made people speechless. Shun Xiuhan snorted coldly. Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude made him even more unhappy. The flames around him became even brighter. Bailey Hongzhuang's hands gradually formed a hand seal. A rainbow-colored circular seal quietly appeared. It was as beautiful as a rainbow. The power of the rainbow pearl had always been very strong. Even the elemental energy was much stronger than ordinary elemental energy. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang could already control whether she was using the rainbow essence force or normal essence force. This was something that Yulin Feng had taught her. Yulin Feng had always been ashamed of being related to the Lan family. Even a treasure like the Rainbow Divine Pearl had been forcefully taken out by him. As for the energy of not using the Rainbow Divine Pearl, Yulin Feng had long mastered it. Coincidentally, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't want people to know her relationship with the Lan family too early, so she learned this trick from Yulin Feng. The rainbow-colored essence force was too representative. As long as one was a member of an aristocratic family or someone who was well-informed, they would be able to identify the rainbow-colored essence force as soon as they saw it. However, now that Bailey Hongzhuang had condensed this seven-colored energy into her hand seal, she believed that no one would be able to tell. When everyone saw the rainbow-colored hand seal that Bailey Hongzhuang had condensed, they were stunned for a moment. Usually, the hand seals that everyone condensed were mostly of the same color. As for this kind of rainbow-colored hand seal, it was the first time that everyone had seen it. However, in the next second, everyone's attention was diverted, because Xiao He and Xiao Bai were also condensing their own hand seals. The black and white lights converged and finally condensed into the shape of an 8 trigrams. Quick look! Bailey Hongzhuang's 2 contracted beasts are displaying their skills. Damn, it really is. Chapter 2270. For Baisher's strength, everyone had some understanding, but for the other 2 contract beasts of Bailey Hongzhuang, no one knew their role and ability. Everyone only knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had 2 glib tongues, but they did not know how powerful they were. Seeing that the 2 contracted beasts had begun to move, everyone could not help but be curious. As Xiao He and Xiao Bai's primary energy surged, the 8 trigrams grew bigger. At the same time, a powerful aura exploded from the 8 trigrams. The cultivators were dumbfounded when they sensed how powerful the aura was. This aura was almost on par with the vermilion bird's blood. How could this be? The disciples of Tiangang Zong looked at each other. The joint attack of Bailey Hongzhuang's 2 contracted beasts could actually match the power of the Earth rank martial skill released by Shun Xiuhan, who was a Green Realm 6 stage. How could they fight? Not to mention Bailey Hongzhuang, they could not even defeat Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beasts. Shun Xiuhan had never thought much of Bailey Hongzhuang's 2 contracted beasts. He had only thought of them as beasts who only knew how to flaunt their eloquence and were only there for show. After all, every cultivator could only have 1 contracted beast. Although everyone knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had 3 contracted beasts, this did not make sense. Baisher's combat abilities were already very strong and could be said to be a great helper for cultivators. If Bailey Hongzhuang's other 2 contracted beasts had such powerful combat abilities, it would be too rare. Hence, many cultivators treated Xiao He and Xiao Bai as 2 beasts for show. These 2 beasts were so small, what kind of power could they have? However, at this moment, After seeing Xiao He and Xiao Bai release their martial arts techniques, Shen Xiuhan's eyes rippled. This was too unbelievable. I was wondering what other trump cards you had. So it was your contracted beasts. Shen Xiuhan's voice was icy. I admit that these two contracted beasts are very strong, but it's not enough. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. If the past wasn't enough then, what about now? Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the rainbow-colored seal between her hands suddenly merged into the 8 trigrams. The moment the rainbow-colored seal merged with the yin-yang 8 trigrams, the yin-yang 8 trigrams seemed to have a soul as it spun wildly. In the process of this rotation, everyone was surprised to find that the yin-yang 8 trigrams diagram was also dyed with the rainbow light. Immediately after, an extremely powerful wave of energy that made one's scalp tingle erupted from the yin-yang 8 trigrams diagram. The ferocious airwaves blew against her clothes. This kind of energy had completely exceeded the range of what a level 5 Green Realm cultivator could display. It was extremely shocking. On the high platform, the faces of the 5 palace masters changed at the same time when they saw the martial techniques displayed by Bailey Hongzhuang and her contracted beast. This martial technique, could it be a combined martial technique between the beasts and their master? Qin AI stared in a daze at the rotating rainbow-colored 8 trigrams diagram. His heart was filled with shock. He had only heard of this martial technique and had never seen it before, because this martial technique had been lost for a long time. In fact, many people thought that this was only an imagination left behind from ancient times, and that such a martial technique did not exist. Chapter 2271. Not only Qin AI, but Gu Jingqing and the rest were also stunned by this scene. I never thought that such a martial technique would actually exist. This kind of power is indeed worthy of its reputation. Gu Jingqing exclaimed in admiration. This scene had given him too much of a shock. This martial technique. I'm afraid its power has reached Green Realm level 8? Yin Kaiqing deduced. Even with the help of the blood aura field, Bailey Hongzhuang's combat power had only increased to Green Realm level 5. However, with this fusion of martial techniques, her combat power had increased to such a level. It was simply too shocking. When faced with a high-level opponent, this was simply a sure-kill technique that could turn the situation around. At this moment, the Alchemy Hall Master, Sun Yin, completely understood the reason why Bailey Hongzhuang stubbornly wanted to become a cultivator despite her talent in alchemy. Bailey Hongzhuang's talent in cultivation was equally shocking. After Shen Xiuhan felt the power of this martial technique, he could no longer maintain his composure. Looking at the unparalleled beauty in front of him, his heart was already in a perilous situation. He could not even understand how Bailey Hongzhuang had done it. Even if it was a cross-level battle, being able to defeat an opponent who was 1 or 2 levels higher than oneself was already very heaven-defying. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's cross-level battle power was simply too strong, wasn't it? This was too hard to accept. Yin-Yang 8 trigrams formation. Bailey Hongzhuang shouted coldly. The Yin-Yang 8 trigrams formation, which shone with a rainbow light, attacked Shen Xiuhan without hesitation. She wanted this fellow to pay the price. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had attacked without saying a word, Shen Xiuhan's gaze hardened, and the blood of the vermilion bird immediately went up to meet her attack. At the same time, Shen Xiuhan immediately supported a wave of elemental energy to protect his body. The moment Bailey Hongzhuang displayed her martial technique, Shen Xiuhan already knew that he had lost this round. Now, he no longer had the time to think about the consequences of his failure. He only hoped that he would not be seriously injured under the power of this martial technique. Boom! An extremely ear-piercing explosion rumbled like thunder from the ninth heaven. This sound was even more earth-shattering than any of the previous matches. It was as if the heavens and earth were about to collapse, causing fear to rise from the bottom of one's heart. Energy surged wildly, and the elemental energy in the air was boiling at an alarming rate. A protective shield had already appeared at the first instance. On the high platform, Deep Bachin and the five temple masters paled when they saw the terrifying energy fluctuations coming from the protective barrier. "Everyone, get out of the way!" Qin AI immediately shouted. Hearing Qin AI's voice, the disciples who were close to the battle stage hurriedly retreated. In fact, when they saw the shockwaves of the battle, many disciples already had the urge to retreat. Bang! An earth-shattering explosion rang out, and the shimmering golden barrier shattered in the blink of an eye. Energy swept out from the martial arts stage, wreaking havoc in the surroundings. The disciples retreated like birds and beasts. The range of this kind of martial skill was extremely shocking. Bachin and the four temple masters acted at the same time. Their elemental energy formed a wall of elemental energy to prevent the disciples from getting hurt. After all, if a cultivator was careless enough to be caught in the aftermath of such a powerful attack, they would need to recuperate for a period of time. Chapter 2272. Damn it, luckily I managed to dodge in time. If I had been any slower, I would have been seriously injured. Lower your voice. Look at the disciples in front. All of their faces are pale, and some are even vomiting blood. The shockwave was too fast, and they did not have the time to dodge. This battle is too terrifying. From today onwards, the person I admire the most is no longer Shen Xiuhan, but Bailey Hongzhuang. I feel that Bailey Hongzhuang is going to win this battle. Many disciples were standing a few thousand meters away in a sorry state. Some of the seriously injured disciples were sent back to their lodgings with the help of their fellow disciples. If they did not properly recuperate from their injuries, it would affect their future cultivation. As for the cultivators who were not too seriously injured, they stubbornly remained where they were, wanting to see the final victor of this battle with their own eyes. "Hall Master Sun, I'll have to trouble you with these injured disciples." Bachan glanced at the number of injured disciples before turning his gaze towards Sun Yin. The disciples' cultivation resources had always been used sparingly. Now that they had been injured from watching the Battle of the Four Palaces, they would naturally be responsible for the healing medicine. Hearing this, Sun Yin joined his hands and said, "Don't worry, young sect master. I will handle this matter properly. Then I'll have to trouble you, Hall Master Sun. Young sect master, I'll take my leave first." Sun Yin then led a portion of the Pill Refinement Palace disciples back to the Pill Refinement Palace. The smoke and dust gradually dissipated. The entire tournament stage, including the area around it, had been turned into ruins. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but be dumbfounded. This was probably the most destructive battle in the Battle of the Four Palaces. The protective shield had been shattered in such a short period of time. Even the Hall Master could only warn them at the first moment. It was clear how shocking the power was. However, when the crowd looked at the ruins, they did not see Bailey Hongzhuang and Shen Xiuhan's figures. They were instantly stunned. They couldn't have been buried, could they? The crowd secretly guessed. Based on the terrifying power from before, this was very likely. Just then, a soft sound attracted the crowd's attention. Then, the movement became louder and louder. A piece of rock was thrown to the side, revealing Bailey Hongzhuang's figure. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly climbed out of the rubble, but when everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang's sorry state, only shock remained in their hearts. Bailey Hongzhuang's hair was messy, and her clean face was stained with dust. Most importantly, blood continued to drip from her body and quickly dyed the stone beneath her feet red. Even though they were separated by a long distance, everyone could feel Bailey Hongzhuang's weak aura. It was obvious that Bailey Hongzhuang had suffered serious injuries in this match. Following that, another faint sound rang out. Everyone quickly turned their gazes towards the source of the sound. Clearly, it was Shen Xiuhan. Shen Xiuhan's figure slowly appeared. However, Shen Xiuhan no longer had the strength to support himself and could only lie in the rubble, gasping for breath. From the way his veins were popping out and the way his hands were exerting strength, one could tell that he had tried his best to climb out of the rubble. However, he had failed in the end and could only continue to struggle. Chapter 2273. Heavens, Bailey Hongzhuang has really defeated Shen Xiuhan. Doesn't this mean that Bailey Hongzhuang has become the new Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's most powerful cultivator? I've never seen Shen Xiuhan in such a miserable state. Even when he had fought with the other Palace Hall's top cultivators, he had never fallen into such a state. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Shen Xiuhan was unable to stand up, she could not help but smile. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked towards Shen Xiuhan. The crowd watched silently as Bailey Hongzhuang moved. They did not know what Bailey Hongzhuang was going to do. Bailey Hongzhuang's every step was slow, but everyone waited patiently. Because Bailey Hongzhuang was a true hero, a truly powerful cultivator. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang stopped in front of Shen Xiuhan. Her beautiful face was filled with disdain and ridicule. Shen Xiuhan, now do you know who's the weak one? Her words were like a vicious slap to Shen Xiuhan's face, recalling Shen Xiuhan's high and mighty attitude before, but now he could only look up at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him. Shen Xiuhan only felt a burst of blood in his body, and an indescribable sense of humiliation rose in his heart. I despise people like you the most. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly squatted down and gently patted Shen Xiuhan's face. If you don't have the ability, then stay put. Don't be arrogant like others. You don't have the right. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's insulting words, Shen Xiuhan could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His breathing weakened once again, but his eyes widened as he glared fiercely at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang, you. What about you? Bailey Hongzhuang did not give Shen Xiuhan the slightest chance and stepped directly on his face. No matter who it is, their self-esteem is not something a person like you can trample on. Crack! A crisp sound was heard. Shen Xiuhan's nose was broken by Bailey Hongzhuang and blood gushed out his nose. Earlier, Bailey Hongzhuang had wanted to punch Shen Xiuhan's nose, but at this moment, she felt that doing so would dirty her hands. Against this kind of person who didn't treat others as human beings, it was necessary to use such simple and crude methods to let him feel the feeling of his pride being trampled on. After everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Usually, when they looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, they only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was easy to bully. However, after witnessing what Bailey Hongzhuang did, they finally understood that Bailey Hongzhuang was definitely not a pushover. On the contrary, Bailey Hongzhuang was the real deal. Bailey Hongzhuang would not even bother to trample on ordinary people. Xiao Feilin and Xiao Feiyu also looked at each other. None of them had expected that their little junior sister, who looked like a little lamb, would be so violent. Damn, this junior sister Bailey is really to my liking. I've always wanted to do this to Shen Xiuhan, but this guy always avoided me and did not give me the chance. Now, junior sister Bailey has already done it for me. This feeling is as good as I imagined. Yinbin could not hide the excitement on his face. He liked this kind of simple and crude method. Chapter 2274. After settling everything, Bailey Hongzhuang turned her gaze towards the high platform. Elder referee, can we announce the results now? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the elder referee finally recovered from his shock. Shen Xiuhan was really miserable today, too miserable. Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's Bailey Hongzhuang wins. On the high platform, the three palace masters turned their gazes towards Qin AI. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shen Xiuhan were both disciples of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. No one had expected the two of them to fight so desperately. Bailey Hongzhuang's glory belonged to the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Shen Xiuhan's humiliation also belonged to the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall. Qin AI's feelings should be very complicated now. When Qin AI sensed the other palace master's gazes, she couldn't help but smile as she said, "A healthy competition is beneficial to increasing the disciples' abilities." However, when she said these words, Qin AI still felt a little lacking in confidence. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked past the ruins. Immediately after, Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, Di Beichun directly leaped from the tournament stage to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. In the next moment, Di Beichun carried Bailey Hongzhuang horizontally and walked towards the bedroom. This scene was undoubtedly another heavy blow to the hearts of the crowd. However, everyone now only felt that the young sect master and Bailey Hongzhuang looked so compatible. Today's battle had left a deep impression in the hearts of all the disciples. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure was also deeply imprinted in their minds, unable to be forgotten for a long time. After returning to the bedroom, Di Beichun immediately took out an elixir and fed it to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichun in front of her and slowly asked, "Have my actions today gone overboard?" She had always intended to keep this as her final trump card and was unwilling to reveal it until the most critical moment. Furthermore, as long as she could obtain a place in the Battle of Zhuolu, she did not care about her ranking in the Battle of the Four Palaces. However, Shen Xiuhan's actions today had really angered her. Di Beichun shook his head. "If it weren't for you, I would have taught that guy a lesson myself." Someone actually dared to use such despicable means on Di Beichun's woman. They were simply looking down on him. If it were not for the fact that the Battle of the Four Palaces was being held, he would have already taken that guy's life. Even with his status, he had never been so arrogant. What was Shen Xiuhan? Was he worthy? Shen Xiuhan's strength is very strong. With him participating in the Battle of Zhuolu, Tiangang's sect's strength will also increase. Di Beichun's eyes turned cold. This kind of guy won't fit in with the group, even if we keep him. He'll only cause more trouble. What's the point of keeping him? Di Beichun had been watching the competition from the high platform. That guy had actually dared to do such a thing. If he did not teach Shen Xiuhan a lesson, then he, as the young sect master, would be treated like heir in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichun's furious expression and understood that Di Beichun was probably angrier than she was when Shen Xiuhan had humiliated her. In both her previous and current lives, she had seen many shameless guys and was already used to it. Wife, recuperate wealth first. Don't think about other things. The coldness in Di Beichun's eyes disappeared and was replaced with gentleness and warmth. Chapter 2275. Upon hearing Di Beichun's words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but find it funny. As a doctor herself, she knew her own body's condition very well. Could it be that if she told Di Beichun would invite another doctor for her? However, she still felt a thick warmth in her heart. Ever since she had cultivated bitterly in the desert world, it had long become a habit for her to get injured. Not only her, Di Beichun and the three beasts were also frequently injured. Simply put, during the period of closed-door cultivation, the wounds on their bodies had never completely disappeared. Even though today's fight had resulted in serious injuries, these injuries were nothing to Bailey Hongzhuang now. While Bailey Hongzhuang was quietly recuperating from her injuries, the Tiangang sect disciples were completely stunned by the shocking news. Many cultivators felt that there was no suspense in the battle between Bailey Hongzhuang and Shen Xiuhan. Shen Xiuhan would undoubtedly win. So many disciples did not go to watch. However, after knowing the shocking result, many disciples regretted their decision. If they had known earlier that this battle would be so exciting, they would have gone to watch it no matter what. The Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's #1 expert, Shen Xiuhan, had been pushed down from the altar in such a humiliating manner. If they did not witness it with their own eyes, it would be a huge regret. The disciples who had witnessed the battle with their own eyes were proudly bragging about how exciting the battle was. Especially Bailey Hongzhuang's crushing kick, it was simply too cool. She had become famous in one battle. This time, Bailey Hongzhuang had truly become famous in one battle. In an instant, Bailey Hongzhuang's position in Tiangang's sect had risen to one of the top 4 experts. Many disciples were secretly guessing who was stronger between Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 experts. The finals of the Battle of the Four Palaces were still in progress. The top experts of the other 3 palaces had displayed their strongest abilities. However, everyone could not help but look forward to the situation where Bailey Hongzhuang or Shun Xiuhan would fight again. Shun Xiuhan had not appeared in front of everyone since that day, when he was severely humiliated by Bailey Hongzhuang. The usual proud son of heaven had appeared in such a humiliating situation in front of everyone. Shun Xiuhan himself could not bear it. While Bailey Hongzhuang was recuperating, Xia Jiqing and the others had come to visit Bailey Hongzhuang. However, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's amazing recovery ability, Xia Jiqing and the others were speechless for a while. In the past, Bailey Hongzhuang was abnormally strong. Now, even her recovery ability was abnormal. At night, Di Beichun suddenly took out a letter and handed it to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly, her clear eyes filled with doubt. It's a letter from Wu Ji Palace. Take a look. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful eyes lit up. Since she had rescued her parents, she had not been in contact with her master and the others. Now, her master and mistress had taken the initiative to contact her. As a disciple, she felt guilty. Opening the letter, Bailey Hongzhuang saw that her master and mistress were concerned about her recent situation. This letter not only contained the content written by her master, but also the content written by her mistress. Her mistress undoubtedly knew that her performance in the alchemist competition was extremely praiseworthy. She was also concerned about her parents' recovery. Chapter 2276. Until she read the last piece of paper, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression turned serious. She was afraid that the contents of the last piece of paper was the main reason why her master sent this letter. Di Beichun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's serious expression and couldn't help but ask with concern, "Wife, did something happen?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "It seems that our plan will have to be changed." As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang handed the letter to Di Beichun. Di Beichun took a look and his gaze gradually changed. "Palace Mistress Yu hopes that you will be the representative of Limitless Palace to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu." Di Beichun slowly said, "Actually, if you think about it carefully, as the successor of Palace Mistress Yu, you are the young Palace Mistress of Limitless Palace. It is only right for you to lead the disciples of Limitless Palace to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu." Previously, none of them had thought of this. Now that he saw the contents of the letter, he finally thought of this point. "So, you also agree that I will participate in the Battle of Zhuolu as a disciple of Limitless Palace?" Bailey Hongzhuang's black and white eyes flashed with a complicated and wise light as she pondered. According to her master, if she participated in the Battle of Zhuolu as the representative of Limitless Palace, then she didn't need to fight for a spot. Before the Battle of Zhuolu, she could stay in Tiangang's sect and cultivate with Di Beichun. When the Battle of Zhuolu was about to begin, she could return to Limitless Palace. Di Beichun nodded slightly. This is also a good idea. As everyone knows, Limitless Palace and Lan Clan's relationship has always been bad. Once they participate in the Battle of Zhuolu, Limitless Palace and Lan Clan's teams are destined to be enemies. In comparison, our Tiangang sect and Lan Clan usually don't have much interaction. If we show that we are against each other, plus you and Ant's extremely similar appearance, I'm afraid it will arouse the Lan Clan suspicions. Once Lan Qingyan tells this news to Yu Siqing and connects it to Master's existence, I'm afraid she will guess your identity. However, if you go as the young palace mistress of Limitless Palace, it won't be so easy to connect the dots. Listening to Di Beichun's analysis, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed a trace of fluctuation. Just like what Di Beichun said, she wanted to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu to formally meet with Lan Qingyan. However, her action against Lan Clan's actions still had to wait until her parents are made preparations. Therefore, she would only appear as Lan Qingyan's opponent in the Battle of Zhuolu, but would not let Lan Qingyan know who she really was. Of Zhuolu decided. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were sharp and resolute. Master's attitude was to let her participate as a successor. After all, the sex of Palace was of Limitless Palace previously. Limitless Palace didn't have a successor, and only the disciples participated. However, Now that they had Bailey Hongzhuang, they didn't need to do the same as before. Di Beichen's lips curled into an evil smile. If you participate as the young palace mistress of Limitless Palace, we will be allies when we meet in the Battle of Zhuolu. I'm looking forward to it. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly remembered that the finals of the Battle of Four Palaces was still ongoing. She couldn't help but frown. Beichun, do I still have to continue competing in this Battle of Four Palaces? Chapter 2277. The most important thing for you to do now is to spend more time on cultivation. Palace Master, you had left a slot for you. I'm sure the disciples of Limitless Palace will not accept this. When you return to Limitless Palace, if your strength is not strong enough, I'm afraid it will cause criticism. Regarding the matters between the disciples, Di Beichun could be said to be clear. Through Bailey Hongzhuang's performance in the Battle of the Four Palaces, no one would be able to criticize Bailey Hongzhuang for obtaining a slot. However, this was Tiangang's sect. The disciples of Limitless Palace did not know Bailey Hongzhuang's true strength. All the disciples were fighting for a slot in the Battle of Zhuolu. Bailey Hongzhuang did not do anything and was able to obtain a slot. Naturally, people would not be convinced. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head. If I appear as the leader of Limitless Palace, I'm afraid my strength is not enough. Even in Tiangang's sect, her strength could only be considered as a strong teammate. If she wanted to be the leader, there was still a huge gap in strength. Master had given her such an important task. She must not disappoint her master. At the very least, she must let the disciples of Limitless Palace be convinced of her strength. Only then would she be able to lead Limitless Palace's team in the Battle of Zhuolu. This matter was easy to say, but it was not an easy thing to do. Even if the strength of the leaders of the various forces was not comparable to Di Beichun, it should not be too far off. Therefore, what she needed to do now was to catch up to Di Beichun's strength as soon as possible. Otherwise, with her strength, she would only be ridiculed if she were to lead Limitless Palace's team in the Battle of Zhuolu. Di Beichun saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had already understood everything and was relieved. Looks like you will have to work even harder in your cultivation. Di Beichun sighed. The time given to Hongzhuang was still too short. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head slightly. I will do my best. All right, my wife, Limitless Palace, also sent someone to deliver this. Di Beichun handed a small box to Bailey Hongzhuang. The box had been locked with his mind. No one other than Bailey Hongzhuang could open it. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the exquisite wooden box in front of her, and her eyes were filled with astonishment. This box was so exquisite that it probably couldn't contain anything. She really couldn't guess what her master had sent her. Bailey Hongzhuang's spiritual power slowly entered the wooden box. Immediately after, her spirit shook, and there was suddenly one more thing in her mind. In Di Beichun's eyes, he only saw that the wooden box was empty after it was opened. Bailey Hongzhuang sensed the new thing in her mind. In the next moment, she actually appeared on the stairway to heaven. Dense elemental energy instantly wrapped around her. It was clearly the same situation as when she was cultivating on the stairway to heaven in the ruins and Limitless Palace. After thinking carefully, Bailey Hongzhuang already understood. The reason why her master did this was to help her increase her cultivation as soon as possible. With the existence of the stairway to heaven, her cultivation speed would be more than 2 times faster than before. Perhaps this was the opportunity for her to catch up with other cultivators. When Bailey Hongzhuang exited the spiritual world, she saw Di Beichun looking at her worriedly. My wife, how are you? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. I'm fine. Master has implanted the stairway to heaven's imprint in my mind. I can enter the stairway to heavens through my mind and cultivate on the stairway to heavens. Chapter 2278. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, a ripple appeared on Di Beichun's calm face. I didn't expect Palace Master use methods to be so amazing. In this way, your cultivation speed will be twice as fast as usual. He already knew that Yulin Feng was extraordinary. Even the leader of the ordinary forces praised Yu Linfeng. At this moment, after seeing Yu Linfeng's methods with his own eyes, Di Beichen couldn't help but sigh. This method was definitely not something that an ordinary person could perform. He had already seen the power of this heaven stairway when he was in Limitless Palace. He finally understood why Yu Linfeng's cultivation was so amazing at such a young age. After all, cultivating under such rich yuan energy, his cultivation speed was much faster than ordinary people. However, from Yu Linfeng's series of methods of taking out the Rainbow Divine Pearl and fusing it with Beili Hongzhuang, it could be seen that Yu Linfeng was extremely smart and absolutely incomparable to ordinary people. Beili Hongzhuang also sighed in her heart. I didn't expect Master to even think of this for me. Palace Master Yu is sincere to you. Wife, you really found a good master. Di Beichen's face was full of smiles. From the bottom of his heart, he was happy for Beili Hongzhuang. He also had a very good master and grew up under his master's guidance. If it wasn't for his master, he wouldn't be where he was now. Beili Hongzhuang smiled like a flower. Beichun, sometimes I feel that maybe it's because I suffered too much in the past, so the heavens want to compensate me now. Now, she had an unprecedented satisfaction. Her family was reunited, her master and mistress's love, and Beichun's devotion. As long as you feel happy. Di Beichen lovingly stroked Beili Hongzhuang's head. He could feel the changes in Beili Hongzhuang over this period of time. Ever since she had cured Mu Jin's illness, she had become much happier. In the past, Beili Hongzhuang was always stubborn and strong, but people couldn't help but feel sorry for her. Now, Beili Hongzhuang was working hard, but people could see the sunshine in her heart. Following the news that Beili Hongzhuang would no longer continue to participate in the Battle of the Four Palaces, Tiangang's sect also caused a great uproar. No one understood why Beili Hongzhuang did not want to continue the competition. With the strength that Beili Hongzhuang had displayed, she might even be able to take first place. Then, another piece of news was even more shocking. Not only was Beili Hongzhuang no longer participating in the Battle of the Four Palaces, she had even given up on the martial arts championship. The disciples were in an uproar. However, the disciples who were participating in the competition were very happy. This way, they would have one more place. However, Beili Hongzhuang had directly recommended her place to Yin Yuhuan so that Yin Yuhuan could take over Beili Hongzhuang's place and continue to participate in the Battle of the Four Palaces. When Yin Yuhuan had found out about Beili Hongzhuang's decision, he had been very shocked. Initially, he had no chance of participating in the Battle of the Martial Arts Championship. He never thought that Beili Hongzhuang would now give this place to him. Initially, Yin Yuhuan was not prepared to accept it. After all, this was simply too outrageous. However, after hearing the young sect master's words, Yin Yuhuan chose to accept it. After all, this was Beili Hongzhuang's good intentions. Besides, he had the power to do so. Chapter 2279. Under such circumstances, the slots for the Battle of Zhuolu were finally confirmed. After the Battle of the Four Palaces, the disciples who had obtained the slots for the Battle of Zhuolu would go out with the young sect master to train in order to increase their strength faster. Usually, everyone would be in seclusion in the sect to train. The Battle of Zhuolu had high requirements for the cultivators' actual combat. Hence, Di Beichen and the 5 palace masters made such a decision. From the performance of the Battle of the Four Palaces, they could tell that the individual combat strength of the disciples was not weak, but there was still room for improvement. Going out together as a group to train together was very beneficial. Wife, let's go out together tomorrow. Di Beichun saw Beili Hongzhuang come out of the desert world and said to Beili Hongzhuang. These few days, he had been busy preparing for the Battle of the Four Palaces and the Battle of Zhuolu. He did not train together with Beili Hongzhuang. Hearing this, Beili Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. The results of the Battle of the Four Palaces have been announced. That's right. Time is of the essence, and we can't waste any time. So we have to leave early tomorrow morning. I'm fine with it. Early the next morning, Beili Hongzhuang and the rest gathered at the foot of Tiangang's sect's mountain. Other than the 10 people representing Tiangang's sect, There was a total of 11 people, including Bailey Hongzhuang. When Gue Jinyuan and the rest saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had come, their faces were filled with curiosity. "Junior Sister Bailey, are you going to train with us this time?" Gue Jinyuan asked with a smile. Gue Jinyuan was not the only one. Almost all the disciples looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang had suddenly given up on participating in the Battle of the Four Palaces and the Battle of Zhuolu. This had made everyone very confused. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Gue Jinyuan, Yi Qinyu, and Yin Yuan had all successfully obtained the slots for the Battle of Zhuolu, her smile widened. "That's right, I'm going to train with everyone, but I won't be participating in the battle for deer. If I have the chance to go out and train, I'll have more chances to improve myself." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Her simple words had already dispelled some people's concerns. "I see." Yi Qinyu smiled. "I didn't think that I would have the opportunity to train with Junior Martial Sister Bailey. I'm really lucky." Yin Yuan walked over to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. His honest and upright face was now filled with embarrassment. "Junior Sister Bailey, I have to thank you for recommending me to the young sect master. Otherwise, I wouldn't have this opportunity. Senior Brother Yin, you already have the strength to enter the finals. It's only right for me to do this." In fact, if Yin Yuan did not draw Bailey Hongzhuang during the competition, with his strength, he would definitely be in the top 10 of Tiangang's sect. Yin Yuan saw that Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were clear and didn't seem to be faking it. The burden in his heart also lessened a little. He also had a better impression of Bailey Hongzhuang. It was rare for him to admire someone, and this person was just as admirable as he thought. For a moment, everyone's attitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang was exceptionally friendly. As long as it was an expert, the attitude of the people around them would always be friendly. Not long after, Di Beiqin and the 5 palace masters appeared in front of everyone. Chapter 2280. As soon as Di Beiqin opened his mouth, the power of the young sect master had already spread out. "Yes, young sect master." Everyone spoke in unison, looking serious and serious. With the young sect master accompanying them, it was impossible for them not to cooperate. As long as they could perform well in the Battle of Zhuolu, when they returned to Tiangang sect, their status would be different from before. Cultivation resources would also be greatly increased, and the benefits could be said to be unlimited. The place we're going to train this time is the well-known Bloodground Abyss. There are many tyrannical monsters there. On the one hand, everyone can improve their cultivation through fighting with monsters. On the other hand, it can also help reduce the hidden dangers of humans. However, the monsters near the Bloodground Abyss are all mutated monsters. Their strength is much stronger than ordinary monsters, so everyone must be very careful when fighting with monsters. You must not underestimate the enemy. Hearing that the place to train was the Bloodground Abyss, everyone could not help but be slightly stunned. That was a place with a great reputation. Ordinary cultivators did not dare to approach it at all. However, that was only for ordinary cultivators. For cultivators of their strength, it was definitely not a place of death. In addition, we're going to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu next, so our relationship is that of teammates. Everyone, don't be too rigid. You can tell me anything. There is no need to worry. Di Beiqin's words were concise and comprehensive, but orderly, including all the content. When the 5 palace lords saw that Di Beiqin had handled things so well, they were very happy in their hearts. The sect master had now completely handed over Tiangang's sect to the young sect master. Fortunately, the young sect master's performance had always been praiseworthy. Now, he was even more capable of taking on heavy responsibilities. They believed that Tiangang's sect would continue to prosper under the leadership of the young sect master. "Yes, young sect master." Everyone's eyes lit up, and they responded one after another. The opportunity to become teammates and even friends with the young sect master was not something ordinary people could have. After Di Beiqin saw that everyone had understood, his gaze turned to the 5 hall masters with a serious and solemn expression. 5 hall masters, in the days when I am not in Tiangang's sect, I will have to trouble you with Tiangang's sex affairs. Young sect master, don't worry, we will do our best. The 5 hall masters said in unison. In fact, as long as there were no accidents, there was nothing that required everyone's attention in Tiangang's sect. Immediately, Bailey Hongzhuang and the group set off towards the Bloodground Abyss. Bloodground Abyss. When Bailey came to this place again, she could not help but feel a myriad of emotions in her heart. Thinking back to when he had just arrived here, she was still so insignificant and pitifully weak. Now that she had come to the Bloodground Abyss again, she was clearly much stronger than before, even though she still couldn't be considered to be very powerful. Along the way, everyone was rushing with all their might. Their speed was far faster than when she had first arrived. In the group, many disciples came to the Bloody Ground Abyss for the first time. However, all of them had heard of the Bloody Ground Abyss. Is this the famous Blood Ground Abyss? Xiao Feiyu's gaze landed on the blood-colored world in the distance. He had long heard that the Bloodground Abyss was enveloped by blood qi. Now that he had seen it, the rumors were true. Chapter 2281. The disciples were all looking at the Bloodground Abyss. There were many mysterious and special places like the Bloodground Abyss in the Shengxian continent. These places often had very mysterious powers that defied common sense and were incomprehensible. However, such places were always something that everyone was willing to explore. Many of the disciples in the team had been to the Bloodground Abyss before. After all, the inheritance of the Blood Qi Tower had attracted a large number of young cultivators to try it. Once they obtained the inheritance of the Blood Qi field, it would be really amazing. However, everyone returned in disappointment after gaining some knowledge and combat experience in the Blood Qi field. This was because the inheritance of the Blood Qi Tower was indeed worthy of its reputation. It was too difficult to obtain. Young sect master, were we going to train in the Bloodground Abyss this time? Gue Jianyuan asked. Not only Gue Jianyuan, but most of the disciples present were very curious. The Blood Qi Tower was only suitable for Crimson Realm cultivators. It was meaningless for them. Bailey Hongzhuang had a guess in her heart. Back then, Di Beichan wanted to take her to the back of the Blood Qi field to train, but they didn't have time at that time, and she was too weak to go. At that time, Di Beichan told her that they would come here again if there was a chance. Now it seemed that they were going to that place. There is a training ground at the back of the Blood Qi Tower. Low-level cultivators can't enter it at all. However, the Blood Qi Tower's reputation is too great. So many people think that only the Bloodground Abyss is worth training in. We're going there this time, Di Beichan explained. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. They had indeed only heard of the Blood Qi Tower's reputation and knew nothing about the place Di Beichan was talking about. By the way, since we are out, you can call me Captain from now on, Di Beichan exhorted. The number of cultivators they would meet during this experiential learning was definitely not small. Once someone addressed him as young sect master, his identity would naturally be exposed. Yes, Captain, everyone responded. Soon, everyone walked into the Bloodground Abyss. Everyone felt as if they had walked into a world of blood. Everyone's eyes were covered in red. The buildings, the blood, and the sky seemed to be connected together. The faint smell of blood spread in the air, and there was still fresh blood on the ground. The cultivators who had been to the Bloodground Abyss before were no stranger to this scene. However, the cultivators who had just arrived could not help but be surprised. Rumors were one thing, but seeing it with one's own eyes was another. This place was completely different from the clean streets and friendly shops that he usually saw. This was a gathering place of blood and filth. However, everyone's psychological quality was very good. Even if their hearts were filled with surprise and shock, they did not show it on their faces. As Di Beichan's group entered, the cultivators of the Bloodground Abyss started sizing them up. However, because Di Beichan's group had quite a number of people, coupled with their extraordinary auras, even some of the people who usually liked to plot against them had put away their crooked thoughts. This kind of person was obviously not an ordinary person. Once he made a move, it was very likely that he would be the unlucky one. Chapter 2282. When they passed by the Blood Qi Tower, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but take a look. This place was the place that had helped her the most. When the cultivators of the bloody ground abyss saw Di Beichun and the rest walking towards the training grounds without hesitation, everyone's faces were filled with surprise. At the same time, they were glad that they didn't make a move. Otherwise, they would really be finished. One had to know that those who entered the second training ground of the bloody ground abyss were all true experts. As everyone got closer and closer to the second training ground, everyone felt the temperature rise. The original slight coldness had dissipated and was replaced by a dry heat. Everyone has been on the road for so long. Let's rest for a day and understand the situation. We'll start moving tomorrow. What do you all think? Di Beichun turned around and looked at the people behind him, asking for their opinions. Hearing this, everyone nodded. Di Beichun's arrangement was undoubtedly the most appropriate. Right now, they were completely confused about the second training ground. If they didn't understand the situation better before making a move, it would be too rash. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang walked into the restaurant, many gazes fell on everyone. The situation in the restaurant was the same as what Bailey Hongzhuang had seen before. These big men were all wearing thin clothes, and many of them directly exposed their arms and chests. Obviously, they couldn't stand the heat here. Di Beichun looked around the restaurant, and the others all withdrew their gazes. In this kind of situation, it was best not to act at the beginning. As for the later stages, it would depend on the situation. Everyone ordered some dishes. These dishes were all made from demonic beast meat. The fragrance was overflowing, and it was definitely not something ordinary food could compare to. After Xiao Feilin and the rest ate the food, they couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. The taste was really good. This place is really interesting. I don't know why it's so hot. Xiao Feiyu's eyes were filled with curiosity. She felt that the heat seemed to be spreading from the ground. Could it be that there was a volcano nearby? The food here is really delicious. It tastes much better than what I usually eat. Yin Yuan exclaimed. Normally, he spent all his time on cultivation and didn't have any requirements for food. Most of the time, he ate dry rations. Now that he had tasted the demonic beast meat, he felt that it was truly delicious. Speaking of which, cultivators usually found joy in suffering. They simply did not enjoy as much as ordinary people. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, everyone went to the rooms on the second floor to rest. Di Beichun winked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun walked out of the restaurant together. It had been a long time since they came to the Bloodground Abyss, so they had to learn more about the situation here before they started their training. Baishur walked majestically beside Bailey Hongzhuang. It was no longer the cute little pet from before, but a contract beast that could intimidate others. Some cultivators were a little afraid of Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Feiyu just by looking at Baishur's appearance. With one look, they could tell that Baishur's level was not weak. A cultivator who could have such a contract beast was naturally not something an ordinary person could compare to. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were still sitting on Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's shoulders. This scene was exactly the same as a few years ago, except that everyone had grown up. Chapter 2283. The geographical environment here is different from other places. It's like a volcano. There's magma flowing underground, so it's extremely hot. However, the terrain here is very stable. Even if there's magma underground, it hasn't collapsed for so many years. Under the influence of this strange terrain, the demonic beasts here all have a kind of fire attribute. Even the demonic crystals in their bodies are the same. Hearing Di Beichun's explanation, Bailey Hongzhuang continued. So, the demonic crystals in the demonic beasts here are the same as the demonic crystals in the desert world. They're different from ordinary demonic crystals? Di Beichun nodded slightly. After the research of cultivators, they found that there's nothing wrong with these demonic crystals. There's no difference in their effects. They're even better than ordinary demonic crystals. The dishes we ate in the restaurant were also made from the meat of demonic beasts here. Have you noticed the difference in these demonic beasts' meat? These demonic beasts' meat seems to be easier to absorb than the ones we eat outside. The energy inside is also richer. Bailey Hongzhuang replied. Thinking back to when she was busy detoxifying her parents and grandmother, Di Beichen had always prepared demonic beast meat for her. This was because demonic beasts' meat was purer than ordinary poultry. It contained fewer impurities and could also help cultivators recover a certain amount of vitality. The first time she ate demonic beast meat in the Bloodland Abyss, she didn't pay much attention. However, after tasting it today, she immediately noticed it. That's right. The energy of these mutated demonic beasts is easier for humans to absorb. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with this mutation, Di Beichen said with a faint smile. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with understanding. There were always many special things and special species in this world. When one first heard of them, they often felt that it was impossible. However, they really existed. Thinking back, she liked to explore these strange places. After obtaining the Chaos Ring, she transmigrated. Therefore, she didn't doubt this existence at all. Wife, let's go ahead and take a look. Di Beichen had a warm and elegant smile on his face. He held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walked forward. The closer they got to the second training ground, the hotter the temperature became. Bailey Hongzhuang's forehead was already sweating. What entered his eyes was a fiery red mountain peak. The range was extraordinarily large. At a glance, it seemed to be endless. What was strange was that there were also fiery red plants growing on the mountain peak. At a glance, it was bright red, revealing a somewhat bewitching beauty. Bailey Hongzhuang could feel the rolling magma below. It was because of the magma that the temperature was so high. To think that plants can grow in this place. This is simply too miraculous. Xiaohei stared blankly at the scene before her as a look of disbelief appeared on her face. Magma was flowing on the ground. The nutrients that could provide plants with nutrients had probably disappeared long ago, but these plants were still able to survive. It was really amazing. This world is really full of strange things, Xiaobai sighed. Cultivators hunt demonic beasts in these mountains. There are many demonic beasts, and their reproduction speed is also very fast. Many cultivators will bring the corpses back after killing the demonic beasts. They will sell them for a good price or eat to their heart's content. Chapter 2284. Bailey Hongzhuang looked ahead. Some cultivators were slowly dragging the corpses of demon beasts, and there were several eye-catching wounds on their bodies. It was obvious that these people cultivated here all the time. Just by looking at their eyes and the murderous aura they inadvertently revealed, one could tell that they lived a life of bloodshed every day. When these people passed by Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, they deliberately glanced at them, obviously assessing their strength. Almost all the people in the Bloodground Abyss were cruel and merciless people, because if they didn't have such a temperament, they would have lost their lives long ago. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen also had cold faces. They didn't intend to take the initiative to attack others, but if someone attacked them, they would definitely not be polite. With Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's current strength, ordinary people were no match for them. Most of the cultivators in the Bloodground Abyss had sharp eyes and could naturally see this point. Immediately, they didn't stay and directly left. It seems that this place hasn't changed much compared to before, and the method is still the same as before. Let's go back. Di Beichen said. Since they had confirmed that nothing had changed, they could come here tomorrow to train. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. She was very curious about the strength of the demon beasts here, and she didn't know how they compared to the demon beasts in the desert world. In comparison, Baishur was the most excited. As soon as he heard that there was a different demon crystal, all the cells in his body were already jumping. He had always been the most interested in demon crystals. Bailey Hongzhuang stroked Baishur's head. She knew that Baishur would be very excited when he heard the news. Speaking of which, ever since Baishur swallowed the demon crystal in the desert world, his cultivation speed had been much faster than usual. This proved that some special demon crystals could promote Baishur's strength to increase faster. She didn't know if the demon crystals here would have a better effect on Baishur's strength. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen returned to the restaurant together. Di Beichen informed the other disciples that everything was normal, and they could move without worry tomorrow. Only then did they return to their own houses. Bailey Hong Zhuang's mind moved, and she directly entered the heaven stairway to cultivate. She understood that her master had integrated the method of entering the heaven stairway into her mind, and only she could enter it to gain experience. After all, this place wasn't Limitless Palace. Di Beichen and the three beasts could enter with her. Therefore, the three beasts made their own decisions. Baisher would follow Bailey Hongzhuang to train, and Xiao Bai and cultivate in the desert world. They had been training in the desert world for so long. They already knew which places were safe and which places had powerful demon beasts. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai didn't plan to fight demon beasts. They only wanted to find a secluded cave to cultivate. Half a day in the desert world was equivalent to 3 days. Only in this way could they obtain the greatest improvement in a short period of time. Otherwise, their master and Baisher would leave them far behind. This was a situation that they couldn't accept. Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai had already made up their minds. She nodded. Then you have to be more careful in the desert world. Chapter 2285. The next day, just as the sky started to brighten, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest walked out of the house. Today was the day for everyone to start their training. Everyone looked at each other and smiled. After a long journey, everyone had become familiar with each other. What's more, as the existence of the top 10 in Tiangang sect, there were not many contradictions between each other. In addition, now that everyone was teammates with the young sect master, these contradictions were naturally suppressed. Of course, there was another reason for such peace. Shun Xiuhan was not in the team. If Shun Xiuhan was here, Yinbin would definitely fight with Shun Xiuhan, and the situation would be much more complicated. Bailey Hongzhuang did not know how Di Beichun dealt with Shun Xiuhan's matter, but based on her understanding of Di Beichun, Shun Xiuhan's outcome would not be good. Di Beichun had always been protective. Even if Shun Xiuhan had been severely taught a lesson by her, Di Beichun would not let him off so easily. The disciples in the team were also curious about this point, but no one mentioned it. No matter how they looked at it, Shun Xiuhan was courting death. He clearly knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's identity was not ordinary, but he still dared to provoke her. The position of the Vermilion Bird Palace Hall's #1 expert was indeed much higher than the ordinary disciples, but compared to the young sect master, he was definitely someone who could be replaced. After everyone had breakfast together in the restaurant, they set off for the training ground. Along the way, Di Beichen also explained the details of the training ground to everyone. From afar, it looks like a mountain range that stretches endlessly, but in fact, there are many caves and tunnels here. Most of the monsters here are hidden in the caves and tunnels, and you can't find the monsters from the outside. If we want to hunt monsters, we can only go deep inside. It's pitch black inside, and we can't use torches, so everyone has to be extra careful. Once we're ambushed, it can cause serious injuries. Di Beichen's voice was deep and serious. The demonic beasts here are very strong. The closer we get to the back, the stronger the demonic beasts are. In this place, there are also demonic beasts that are stronger than us. We must not lower our guard. Listening to Di Beichen's introduction of the strange landscape, everyone was filled with curiosity and doubt about this place. However, none of them were newborns, so they kept everything Di Beichen said in mind. After Bailey Hongzhuang found out that the Yao beasts here liked to launch sneak attacks, she knew that it was dangerous to train here. However, if one cultivated here for a long time, the benefits were obvious. At the very least, his reaction speed and agility would be greatly improved, and his ability to sense danger would also increase. These things didn't seem to be a big deal in normal times, but they were very useful in daily life. After all, the battles between cultivators didn't always happen in a fair and just tournament arena. There were even more conflicts in private. Once someone launched a sneak attack, the effect of this ability could be imagined. Di Beichun led everyone and didn't enter the tunnel in front of the mountain, but went all the way to the back. With their current strength, the monsters here couldn't help them improve at all. Chapter 2286. Let's go into this tunnel. Di Beichun said slowly. The demonic beasts in here are not as strong as us, but they are extremely fast. Everyone, let's get used to the environment here first, then we'll go deeper. Hearing Di Beichun's words, everyone nodded their heads. Along the way, they had seen many cultivators who were severely injured. Even if the other party's strength could not be compared to theirs, those shocking wounds were still imprinted in their hearts. If they did not experience it first, they could very well be seriously injured. The strongest will stand at the front and back of the group. The weaker ones will stand in the middle. Everyone, stay alert. Do not be distracted. The 4 strongest experts from the 4 palaces stood at the front and back of the group, while Bailey Hongzhuang stood behind Di Beichun. In reality, Xiao Feilin and the rest all thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was not weaker than theirs. To be able to injure Shen Xiuhan to such an extent, it was already proof of Bailey Hongzhuang's true strength. In the next moment, Di Beichun directly led the group into the tunnel. Their vision suddenly turned dark, and everyone could not help but squint their eyes to get used to the sudden change in light. In the tunnel, the ground was slippery and wet, and the sound of water dripping could be heard continuously, dripping down from the mountain rocks. Only when their feet stepped on the water could a slight sound be heard. It was empty and dead silent, and one could hear the echo of a sentence. Everyone gripped the weapons in their hands tightly, carefully looking around, hoping to get rid of the demonic beasts as soon as possible before they attacked. Although the vision of a cultivator was much better than that of an ordinary person, but in this pitch-black environment, they still could not see anything clearly. Suddenly, a sound like the wind rang out, and everyone's heart trembled. Di Beichun struck like lightning, and as his sword fell, the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground could be heard. Everyone was shocked. They had only felt a gust of air and did not even know what the attack was, but Di Beichun had already dealt with it. However, after seeing this scene, everyone then understood how difficult it was to train here. Di Beichun took out the demon crystal and handed it to Baishur, who was beside Bailey Hongzhuang. White Lion opened its mouth, and the demon crystal fell into its mouth. Instantly, crunching sounds could be heard. After eating, White Lion licked its lips, and its eyes lit up. "Master, this demon crystal tastes really good." White Lion was excited, and the energy contained in it is higher than ordinary demon crystals. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt that it was funny. The demon crystals that Baishur was eating now had all sorts of flavors. There are many demonic beasts here. You can have all the demonic crystals from the demonic beasts. You should try to break through again before the Battle of Zhuolu. Bailey Hongzhuang patted Baishur's head. Baishur's cultivation speed was incomparable to ordinary people. If there were enough demon crystals here, it would not be a problem for Baishur to increase his strength. "Master, I will." White Lion raised its head confidently. Xiao He and Xiao Bai had put away their playful thoughts and worked hard on their cultivation. By then, their strength would definitely increase by a lot. If its strength did not increase, wouldn't it lose to Xiao He and Xiao Bai? It did not want that. Everyone now knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast had always fed on demon crystals. Everyone was speechless at this point. Chapter 2287. Normal contracted beasts couldn't eat demon crystals when they were young, but when they reached a certain age, they could. However, the energy in the demon crystal was extremely rich. Once he ate a demon crystal, it would take a while for him to completely absorb it. Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast was obviously different. It ate demon crystals as if they were its meals, and it didn't have any intention of stopping. Everyone sighed at White Lion's perverse strength and at its prodigal behavior. Thinking about it, Bailey Hongzhuang spent a shocking amount of money to nurture White Lion to such a level. Suddenly, another soft sound appeared. Then, there was the sound of a knife being drawn from the back of the group. However, this speed wasn't as fast as Di Beichun, and it wasn't able to take the beast's life in that short period of time. In the blink of an eye, the beast had already disappeared. "Xiao Feiyu, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Xiao Feiyu shook his head, but his voice was filled with depression. "This demonic beast speed is too fast. We actually let it escape." Bailey Hongzhuang wrinkled her nose. She could smell the faint smell of blood in the air. It seemed that Xiao Feiyu was slightly injured by the beast's sneak attack. Everyone's expression changed when they saw that Xiao Feiyu couldn't subdue the beast. Xiao Feiyu was ranked in the top 5 in their group, but he still couldn't finish it off. It could be seen that the beast's speed was extraordinary. However, no matter how shocked everyone was, they didn't lose their footing because of this. They only became more vigilant and careful of their surroundings. Ding! Bailey Hongzhuang felt a fluctuation in the air, and the glazed sword in her hand quickly pierced out. As expected, the sword pierced through the body of a demonic beast, and Bai Shi had already started eating the second demonic crystal. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't just leave the beast's corpse behind. The beast's meat was so delicious that everyone could eat to their heart's content when they brought it back. Everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang silently kill the demonic beast, and their expressions couldn't help but change a bit. Bailey Hongzhuang was able to do something that Xiao Feiyu had never been able to do. This was truly amazing. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. In her previous life, she had also undergone training in this area, so her reaction speed was definitely much faster than the average person. She no longer viewed herself as a teammate, but as a leader, so there was nothing to be happy about. Di Beichen's eyes were filled with astonishment because he realized that Bailey Hongzhuang's sword was even faster than his. It was obvious that her reaction speed was more agile than his. In the past, his master had specially brought him here to cultivate in order to improve his reaction speed. At that time, he had been cultivating here for a long time. From the beginning, his body was covered with injuries. Later on, it took him a long time to become independent. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's reaction speed was clearly faster than his. The demonic beasts continued to launch sneak attacks. In the process, everyone was also constantly adapting to the sneak attacks of the demonic beasts, increasing their ability to judge the situation. One after another, the demonic beasts fell at the hands of the group. However, there were also many people who were injured by the sneak attacks. The smell of blood in the air gradually intensified. There were demonic beasts, and there were also humans. Chapter 2288. When everyone saw that White Lion had a special liking for these demon crystals, they all gave their demon crystals to White Lion. Demon crystals were not of much use to them. Since White Lion needed them, they naturally gave them to White Lion. Bailey Hongzhuang thanked everyone for their good intentions, but did not reject them. White Lion's demand for demon crystals was indeed high. In the evening, everyone set off for the restaurant. However, compared to their high spirits when they had set off in the morning, they were clearly in a sorry state now. Everyone was covered in dust and bloodstains. Some of the wounds were so deep that their bones could be seen. However, everyone did not make sound. As long as their injuries did not affect their movements, it was not a big deal. However, if you look carefully, you would find that except for Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, there were no injuries on their bodies. Everyone else had different degrees of injuries. Just from this point alone, one could see the difference in strength between everyone, at least in terms of agility. After returning to the restaurant, everyone handed the corpses of the demon beasts they had hunted to the shopkeeper so that he could make them a sumptuous dinner. The remaining ingredients were left to the shopkeeper. When the shopkeeper saw the number of demon beasts they had hunted, he was dumbfounded. There were many strong cultivators in the Bloodland Abyss, but it was extremely rare for Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest to kill so many demon beasts. Furthermore, from the species of the demon beasts, one could tell that their level was very high. They were definitely demon beasts that could only be found in the depths of the mountain. Seeing this, the shopkeeper's face was full of smiles. Not only did he not charge for the ingredients, even the room fee was completely saved. After a day of exhaustion, everyone was hungry and exhausted. Hence, the amount of demon beasts they had eaten was extremely terrifying. Bailey Hongzhuang brought White Lion back to the house. White Lion immediately entered a state of cultivation. He had eaten a lot of demon crystals today. When he returned, He felt that the yuan power in his body was surging. He should have sat down long ago to absorb and digest. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's mind moved, and she immediately entered the stairway to heaven. Today could be said to be a high-intensity experience. The yuan power in her body had been depleted, and her mental power was also in a tense state. Under such circumstances, cultivating on the stairway to heaven for a while would allow him to improve at an extremely fast speed. Bailey Hongzhuang directly walked up to the highest level of the heaven stairway. Immediately, she felt that her entire body was enveloped by Yuan Li. As long as she circulated her cultivation technique, the Yuan Li would immediately be absorbed into her body. Bailey Hongzhuang's cells greedily absorb the elemental energy, constantly strengthening Bailey Hongzhuang's dantian. Bailey Hongzhuang believed that with the help of this heaven stairway, her cultivation would definitely be able to catch up in these 3 months. For Di Beichen's training room to be able to achieve 4 times the amount of elemental energy was already an incredible existence. Even Lan Qingyan probably wouldn't have a training room with more elemental energy than this. As a result, she was blessed by the heavens to cultivate on the stairway to heaven. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest once again headed to the training ground to train. The scorching temperature caused everyone's clothes to be drenched in sweat. It was extremely uncomfortable to stick to their bodies. After Di Beichen considered everyone's strength, he decided to continue training at a place not far from yesterday's training ground. Everyone needed a certain amount of time to adapt. If the demon beasts were too strong, it would be even more disadvantageous for the cultivators who were heavily injured. Chapter 2289. After everyone had entered the tunnel, the monsters once again began their sneak attack. However, compared to yesterday's surprise attack, everyone's performance today was clearly much better. Even when faced with the monsters' sneak attack, they remained calm and orderly. After eating so many demon crystals yesterday, White Lion had a breakthrough in the night, and his strength had increased by 1 level. After tasting the sweetness, White Lion was even more excited today. The energy provided by the demon crystals here was much stronger than that of ordinary demon crystals. Even the demon crystals in the desert world could not be compared to it. Not long after everyone had entered the tunnel, White Lion had changed its strategy. It no longer waited for the monsters to sneak attack, but began to take the initiative to attack. As a monster, its vision was not too affected here, so it could clearly see the situation of the monsters in the tunnel. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw White Lion's figure pounce forward and begin to kill the monsters, she followed closely behind. The monsters in the tunnel were not weak, and White Lion had no problem dealing with them alone. However, if the monsters attacked in groups, White Lion would be at a disadvantage. Everyone only felt that the environment in the tunnel had suddenly become complicated. The movements of the monsters were incessant, and the sound of White Lion gnawing on the demon crystals was exceptionally clear. When everyone saw that Bailey Hongzhuang, like Baishur, had taken the initiative to chase and kill the wicked beasts in the tunnel, they were speechless. As a human, it was impossible to see the surroundings clearly in such a dark environment. Being able to determine the specific location of the demonic beasts through their perception and the movements of the demonic beasts was already very difficult. However, Bailey Hongzhuang could actually take the initiative to kill the monsters in such a place. How terrifying was Bailey Hongzhuang's perception and reaction speed? Everyone found it hard to imagine. At least, they would definitely not be able to do it. When Di Beichun saw Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, he was also shocked by Bailey Hongzhuang's ability in this aspect. Back then, he had only seen his master do this. He did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to do it too. She was really amazing. In the following process, the crowd witnessed Bailey Hongzhuang and Baishur's terrifying fighting strength. This man and beast were simply hunting demons. Wherever they went, not a single demonic beast was left behind. Originally, the demonic beasts were still charging towards the group when they were attacked by Jingdong. However, after that, The group walked on peacefully while Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Shi fought their way further and further away. Immediately, everyone's hearts that wanted to ruthlessly deal with the demonic beast collapsed. This man and beast were simply too abnormal. Now I know why Bailey Hongzhuang has such amazing combat strength at such a young age. It's all because of training. During the Battle of the Four Palaces, many people had already seen that Bailey Hongzhuang was not only powerful, but also had great endurance. Now that they saw Bailey Hongzhuang killing so many demonic beasts without showing the slightest sign of exhaustion, they finally understood. Di Beichen's face was filled with an indulgent and demonic smile. Bailey Hongzhuang was an existence that defied the natural order. This kind of style was very much in line with her personality. Under Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Shi's sweeping, the group smoothly walked out of the tunnel as if they were taking a leisurely stroll. They had actually walked out of the tunnel so smoothly. Chapter 2290. The air was filled with the thick smell of blood, revealing the shocking number of demonic beasts that Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Shi had killed. Bailey Hongzhuang had kept most of the demon crystals in the process of killing demonic beasts, leaving them for Bai Shi to eat at night. Yesterday, Bai Shi had eaten too many demon crystals, and on the way back, he could not control himself and was about to break through. In this training ground, demonic beasts were densely packed. The slightest carelessness could cause one to lose one's life. Not to mention, there was also the possibility of encountering other cultivators with ill intentions. Therefore, cultivating and absorbing here could be said to be very unwise. After exiting the tunnel, everyone looked at the spotless Bailey Hongzhuang and the snow-white furred Bai Shi. Other than labeling them as perverts, they did not know what else to say. Perverts. They were simply two perverts. My wife, for the rest of the training, why don't you and Bai Shi walk through another tunnel together? Di Beichen pondered for a moment before asking. With Bailey Hongzhuang's sharp senses, she did not need to go through the training here. At least, demonic beasts of this level would not be able to obstruct Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Shi's footsteps. When everyone heard how Di Beichen addressed Bailey Hongzhuang, their gazes changed. They did not expect the young sect master to be so close to Bailey Hongzhuang that he had directly addressed her as his wife. This was really shocking. It looked like the young sect master and Bailey Hongzhuang would be getting married soon. In future, they should also address Bailey Hongzhuang as the young sect master's wife. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. All right, I'll go to another training ground with Bai Shi. She also felt that the training ground here was of no use to her. Now that she urgently needed to raise her cultivation level, she naturally had to go to a dangerous place where she could raise her strength. I'll go with you in a few days. When Bailey Hongzhuang walked past, Di Beichen's warm and caring voice entered her ears. Di Beichen had to be responsible for leading the team this time. At the very least, he could not leave until everyone had fully adapted to the training methods here. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a warm and beautiful smile. She nodded without leaving a trace before leaving with Bai Shi. Master, let's go on a killing spree. After Bai Shi left the group, he felt relaxed. There was no need to be restrained when dealing with these demonic beasts. Now that there was only him and his master, it was extremely convenient for him to move around. All right, the demonic beasts here aren't much of a challenge to us. Let's go a little deeper. White Lion naturally had no objections and obediently followed behind Bailey Hongzhuang. As a demonic beast, it also had a ruthless personality. No matter how special the demonic beasts here were, could they be as special as the Beast King? Next, Bailey Hongzhuang and White Lion began their cleaning work. The two of them moved as fast as lightning and swiftly hunted down the demonic beasts in the tunnel. As the number of demonic crystals increased, White Lion became more and more excited. At the same time, the demonic beast's power continued to increase. When the demonic beast's power reached a certain level, Bailey Hongzhuang and White Lion's advancement speed was slowed down. Bailey Hongzhuang treated the demonic beast as a training stone. She did not seek speed, only improvement. Chapter 2291. Xiao Feilin and the rest were stunned when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher in such a state. For them to be in such a state, it was obvious that the tunnel they had entered was extremely dangerous. Bailey Hongzhuang had some scratches on her body that were so deep that her bones could be seen. However, Bailey Hongzhuang looked as if she was not injured at all. She greeted everyone with a smile and returned to her room to cultivate after dinner. Seeing this scene, everyone felt a sense of urgency in their hearts. Bailey Hongzhuang's hard work had obviously stimulated them. The next day, Deep Beichin discovered that everyone seemed to have been injected with chicken blood during battle. Compared to their previous cautious attitude, they were now ready to go all out. In the following period of time, everyone repeated the same cycle of training and cultivation. During this process, everyone's strength was constantly increasing, and they no longer looked as inexperienced as before. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang had just walked into a tunnel when she heard faint voices coming from the front. Knowing that there were already people in this tunnel, Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher decided to leave. There were many tunnels here, and there was no need to tangle with others. It was better to find another tunnel with no one around. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to leave, a word in the other party's words attracted Bailey Hongzhuang's attention. "Little fool, are you sure that there is a blood essence demon fruit in the depths of the blood-ground abyss?" "Big brother, I have received very reliable news." Back then, someone had seen the blood essence demon fruit. However, that person's strength was not strong enough, so he could only draw a map. After I received this news by chance, I snatched the map from that person's hands. As for that person, I killed him to silence him. Don't worry, it's definitely true. The blood essence demon fruit is a rare treasure. If we get the blood essence demon fruit, even if we don't consume it ourselves, we can still exchange it for many cultivation resources that we need. Blood essence demon fruit. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard this name, she stopped in her tracks. In order for Deep Beichin's physique to transform into a heavenly mandate physique, he needed 4 types of medicinal herbs. Unfortunately, these 4 types of herbs were simply too rare. Up until now, they had only obtained the 9th grade purple Ganoderma. They had been painstakingly searching for the other herbs, but they couldn't find any useful information. She never thought that she would be able to obtain information about the blood essence demon fruit here. This was a pleasant surprise. Baisher naturally knew the significance of the blood essence demon fruit. He immediately slowed down and carefully followed behind the 3 with Bailey Hongzhuang. Although he still didn't know the strength of these 3 people, for them to be able to come to this level of tunnel, their strength was definitely not simple. If Bailey Hongzhuang's guess wasn't wrong, these people were even stronger than them. The Shengxian continent was vast and boundless, and the number of cultivators was even more astonishing. Even though most of the cultivators did not have a high cultivation, there were still many powerful people who could not be underestimated. There were many experts in the blood-ground abyss. It was just that they usually kept a low profile. Chapter 2292. Who's there? The cultivator who had been addressed as Big Brother immediately noticed the commotion and turned around to look at where Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher were. "Who's behind us?" The man's face immediately tensed up. The information about the blood essence demon fruit was a secret. They had thought that no one else would appear here, so they did not have any qualms about speaking about it. However, the commotion behind them did not belong to them at all. It was also not the sound of a demonic beast. "Big brother, aren't you too nervous?" "I didn't hear anything," Little Fool said. The man shook his head and slowly walked towards where Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher were. He had always been sensitive to sound, and no movement could escape his ears. The commotion just now was definitely out of the ordinary. Behind them, there was someone. Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked to see that this person was so sensitive. The other party's strength was unknown. If a fight broke out, it would not do them any good. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher escaped into the primordial chaos ring, completely hiding their figures. In the next second after Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher escaped into the chaos ring, The man had quickly appeared where Bailey Hongzhuang had been. The other two men quickly came behind the man and asked suspiciously, "Big brother, there's no one here." The big brother shook his head. His expression was firm and serious. "That's not right. There was definitely someone here before this. There's even some residual aura. However, it's only been a short period of time. The other party had actually disappeared so quickly. It looks like he's an expert." Seeing Peng Hong Yuan's serious attitude, Little Fool and Ah San's expressions turned ugly. If the other party was really an expert, then they might have been targeted. This was not good news. "Big brother, I don't think the situation is as serious as you think. If that person was really an expert, he would have attacked us long ago. Why would he run away? Most likely, he's not as strong as our cultivators. That's why he's doing this." Ah San's eyes flashed with a wise light. He had always been the team's brains. Hearing Ah San's words, the big brother and Little Fool exchanged glances. He was right. If they were really experts, they would have captured them and taken a map away. Even if that's the case, we still have to be extra careful. Once this news spreads, it won't do us any good. The boss's eyes were gloomy. "In my opinion, we should wait a few days before taking action. Let's observe the situation for now." All right. After the three of them left the tunnel, Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher came out of the chaos ring. I didn't expect that big brother's senses to be so sharp. I was already very careful before, but I was still discovered. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. Fortunately, she was able to see their faces when they approached. She had been keeping a close eye on these guys for the past few days. No matter what, the blood essence demon fruit was hers. "Master, what should we do now?" White Lion asked. "These people won't be moving for the next few days. Let's go back first and pay attention to which restaurant they're staying in or where they're staying." Chapter 2293. Bailey Hongzhuang followed the group, but realized that they had no intention of leaving. Instead, they continued to stay near the mountain peak. The three of them found a safe spot and sat down to cultivate. They did not look like they were going to go back. Bailey Hongzhuang followed them carefully from distance. The leader of the group was far too sensitive. He would notice the slightest movement, so she had no choice but to stay far away. Soon, Bailey Hongzhuang had already understood the thoughts of these people. They had purposely not gone back to the restaurant and had stayed here to escape her pursuit. If she were to follow them nearby, they would be able to detect her as soon as they moved a little. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sigh. They were indeed a group of incomparably experienced people. It would not be easy to escape their eyes. Based on the way they had searched for a place to stay, she could tell that they were a group of people who had gone through a lot of hardships. It was a good thing that she had a heaven-defying divine weapon like the Chaos Ring. The other party would not be able to detect her. Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher stayed far away and did not pay attention to the other party's situation. If they stared at them for too long, they would attract the other party's attention. The boss surveyed his surroundings. He had specially brought Little Fool and Ah San to this place to catch the other party. A treasure like the blood essence demon fruit would not be given up on by any cultivator who knew about it. Hence, he was almost certain that the other party would be following them. If they had returned to the restaurant, the other party would hide in the crowd, and it would be too difficult to find them. However, in this environment, it would be much easier to find them. "Little Fool, Ah San, you two stay here and cultivate. I'll take a look around." The boss surveyed his surroundings and analyzed where the other party could possibly appear. He must find the other party, or he would not be able to rest easy. Little Fool and Ah San knew what the boss was thinking and nodded. The boss's investigative abilities were top-notch. As long as the other party was following them, the boss would definitely be able to find them. Bailey Hongzhuang paid close attention to the other party's movements. As soon as the situation seemed off, she would escape into the chaos ring. The other party would not be able to detect her presence. Sure enough, Boss searched the surrounding area, but didn't find any traces. He couldn't help but frown. This situation was a bit strange. "Big brother, you didn't find anything?" Seeing the boss come back with a frown, the waiter couldn't help but ask. Boss shook his head. "That's strange. Could it be that my judgment was wrong? He had already searched all the possible hiding places, but he couldn't find any trace of them. It was really strange. Big Brother, the other party might have mistakenly entered the tunnel and knew that we might kill them to silence them, so they quickly escaped. Let's stay here for a few days. The blood essence demon fruit is a precious treasure. We must be careful. It would be terrible if someone intercepted us. Big Brother is right. Anyway, we have time. There's no need to rush. Asan nodded in agreement. Bailey Hongzhuang saw that these people had no intention of leaving, so she had no choice but to stay. The blood essence demon fruit was extremely important to Di Beichun, and he could not afford to lose it. Chapter 2294. The moon hung high in the sky as a cool breeze blew past. Di Beichun stood in front of the window with his hands behind his back, watching the passers-by below. His expression was unfathomable, and his eyes flickered with worry. Bailey Hongzhuang had been working separately from them for the past few days. Logically speaking, with Bailey Hongzhuang's strength and the power of the Chaos Ring, it was impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang to be in any danger. It was because he knew about the power of the Chaos Ring that he was reassured to let Bailey Hongzhuang train in other tunnels. However, it seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang had returned a little too late today. In the next moment, Di Beichun's figure flashed, and he jumped down from the window's sill. His figure then quickly disappeared into the crowd. Bailey Hongzhuang stood quietly by the side and could vaguely hear the movements of the three people. The leader of the group was indeed an extremely cautious person. Even after confirming that there was no one else around, he still checked left and right many times. It was only when the night had deepened that he sat down to cultivate. Master, we'll keep watch over these three people. If we don't go back tonight, Di Beichun will be worried. Baishir said telepathically. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright eyes flashed with a trace of emotion. There's nothing we can do now. We can only wait here. She knew that Di Beichun would be worried. However, if they missed out on these people today, it would be difficult to find them again. There were many mountains here, and it was impossible to find the three people hiding among them. Moreover, these tunnels were full of twists and turns. It was no different from looking for a needle in a haystack. Baishir nodded. Master's words made sense. This blood essence demon fruit only appeared once in a blue moon, and the environment was extremely strange. If they missed it this time, they might not have the chance to see it again for many years. The light turned from dark to bright, and Bailey Hongzhuang peeked out to see that the three people had continued to cultivate after eating some rations. It seemed that they had no intention of leaving today. Bailey Hongzhuang was a very patient person. She had already made up her mind that she would keep watch for as long as these people stayed here. Based on her experience, these people would stay here for at most a few days and not much longer. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang also entered a state of cultivation, and Baishir was in charge of keeping watch. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Night's curtain once again fell upon the earth, and the entire mountain peak was covered in a veil of night. Bailey Hongzhuang thought that these three people's minds. Just as she was about to cultivate, she saw that the three people suddenly stood up and looked around. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly hid her figure. She didn't expect that these people would be preparing to leave at night. Boss, there's really no one around here. Even if that guy wanted to go back and find people to surround us, we've stayed here for 3 days. It's impossible for him to find us again. Because of this small possibility, they had stayed here for so long. In the wilderness, it was hot and dry, and they could only eat rations. It was really unpleasant. It's better to be safe than sorry. Asan said, "Let's go." The boss's face darkened. Little Air had always had a grumbling temper, and he had long been used to it. Chapter 2295. Bailey Hongzhuang followed behind the three and found that they were getting more and more secluded. They would stop and study the map in their hand from time to time. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that the three of them were planning to take advantage of the night to get the blood essence demon fruit. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel excited. However, her worries were also growing. There were 3 of them, and the strongest of them was probably at Green Realm level 8. Even if she and Baishur worked together, it would be very difficult to deal with the 3 of them. The only way was to sneak an attack when they were unprepared. Only then would she be able to come into contact with the Blood Essence Demon Fruit. However, once she snatched the Blood Essence Demon Fruit, the other party would be the first to discover it. Even if she had the Chaos Ring, she could not escape in front of them. Therefore, this matter was still difficult. If she was not careful, she would be seriously injured or even killed. Master, with just our strength, this matter is a little difficult to handle. Baishur naturally found problem. Its cultivation was only at Green Realm level 4, and its master was also at Green Realm level 4. The other party was a Green Realm level 8 expert. Even if its master could fight above her level, the other party had the advantage of numbers. The difference in strength was too great. Bailey Hongzhuang pursed her red lips, and her eyes were deep and complicated. We can only take one step at a time. If there is a chance, don't hesitate. From the conversation she had overheard earlier, she already knew that they were planning to leave the Bloodground Abyss from another direction after obtaining the Blood Essence Demon Fruit. This way, she would not be able to contact Deep Beichan to surround them. Once they left, she would not be able to share the Blood Essence Demon Fruit with them. Baishur nodded. The Blood Essence Demon Fruit was a must, and they would have to fight for it later. As the 3 of them went further and further, Bailey Hongzhuang helplessly found that the mountain was constantly expanding. Without a place to hide, Bailey Hongzhuang could only increase the distance between them. This was the only way to ensure that they would not be discovered. However, the closer they got to the back, the stronger the monsters were. Even if they didn't walk through the tunnel, there would still be some demonic beasts coming out to ambush them. Under such circumstances, the distance between Bailey Hongzhuang and the 3 of them grew further and further. The demonic beasts here weren't the same as before, where she could deal with them with just a slight move. Once she encountered one, it would be a fight, and the other party would definitely discover her existence. Originally, he wanted the white lion to release its aura so that the surrounding demonic beasts would not dare to disturb them. However, as the white lion grew stronger, the aura became more and more powerful. Once the white lion released its aura, these demonic beasts would submit to it. The commotion would be even greater. Not only Bailey Hongzhuang, but the other 3 were also facing attacks from demonic beasts. Therefore, everyone's speed was not fast. Suddenly, a mystical beast appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Baishur. It pounced towards Bailey Hongzhuang without hesitation. The mystical beast's body was huge, and its power was at the green state. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly drew her colored glazed sword and attacked the mystical beast. The mystical beasts here were extremely fast. Bailey Hongzhuang's attack had pierced through the mystical beast's body. The mystical beast immediately realized that it was no match for Bailey Hongzhuang and immediately charged forward. Chapter 2296. The direction in which the demonic beast had fled was exactly where the 3 of them were. Once the 3 of them saw the wound on the demonic beast's body, they would discover that it was caused by a sharp sword and would immediately suspect that there was someone behind them. Bailey Hongzhuang had wanted to chase after the demonic beast and get rid of it, but the demonic beast was too fast. If she were to chase after it, she would definitely be discovered by the other party, and that would be terrible. After knowing that the other party would definitely discover her, Bailey Hongzhuang could only retreat quickly. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang had retreated, the 3 of them had indeed discovered the wound on the demonic beast's body. After the 3 of them had quickly subdued the demonic beast, they discovered the wound on its body and could not help but exclaim, "This sword wound had clearly appeared not too long ago. It wasn't caused by us." The leader's face instantly turned gloomy. It seems that my previous judgment was not wrong. Indeed, someone was following us. At this moment, it wasn't just the leader. Even Xiao and Asan's faces had turned extremely ugly. They had been extremely cautious along the way, but they never thought that they would still be followed. It seems that the other party's ability to follow them was extraordinarily powerful. They had checked so many places over the past few days, yet they had not found a single clue. What kind of method was this? Who's following us? Come out now. The leader shouted coldly. The three of them could not help but feel a lingering fear. If it had not been for the fact that the demonic beast had run over, they would have led the other party all the way to the blood essence demon fruit. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally could not come out. No matter what, she could not allow the other party to discover her whereabouts. Otherwise, if she were to be surrounded and attacked, that would be terrible. The other party was obviously angry to the extreme and immediately flew over. Bailey Hongzhuang was constantly looking for a nearby hiding place. She was different from the other party. She couldn't move too much, otherwise she would be directly discovered by the other party. The leader was very sharp and very quickly. He had arrived at the place where Bailey Hongzhuang had fought with the demonic beast. His face was as gloomy as water. In the next moment, the leader had followed Bailey Hongzhuang's aura and quickly chased after her. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang secretly sighed. This was not good. She was afraid that she could only hide in the chaos ring. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to dodge, a large hand suddenly grabbed her. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart skipped a beat. Before she could see who the other party was, she was pulled into a tunnel and hid. Boss quickly arrived at the spot where Bailey Hongzhuang had been standing and frowned. Damn it, this is the aura I felt 3 days ago. That guy has been following us for so long. Boss, this fellow has been following us without revealing himself. He shouldn't be as strong as us, little fool said slowly. The other party probably wants to contact someone, but they're afraid that they won't be able to find us, so they've been following us, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Asan's eyes flashed with wisdom. If the other party was strong enough, then that demonic beast wouldn't have had the chance to escape. The boss nodded. It's impossible for the other party to leave so quickly. Let's quickly find the other party. Once this news gets out, we'll be in trouble. No cultivator would give up on a treasure like the blood essence demon fruit. Chapter 2297. Bailey Hongzhuang held her breath. The other party's tracking method was really too amazing. It was amazing. Her tracking technique and concealing ability had always been good. Even if the other party's strength was several levels higher than hers, she was confident that she would not be discovered by the other party. However, this leader clearly had a special talent in this area. Fortunately, this tunnel was mixed with the aura of many monsters. It was able to completely cover her aura. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around to look at the person beside her, only to see Di Beichen looking at her with a worried and somewhat reproachful expression. Seeing Di Beichen, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips could not help but curl up into a happy smile. On the way here, she had hoped to be able to contact Di Beichen, but unfortunately, she never had the chance. She did not expect that Di Beichen would actually appear by her side at this moment. Although she could not help but want to speak, the current environment was really not suitable for talking. After the three of them went ahead to search for Bailey Hongzhuang's figure, Bailey Hongzhuang was pleasantly surprised and said, "Beichen, how did you know I was here?" Di Beichen saw Bailey Hongzhuang so happy to see him. The anger that was originally brewing in his heart disappeared in an instant. In this life, he was completely lost in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang. He could not even scold her. "Wife, you didn't come back. Do you know how worried I was?" Bailey Hongzhuang stuck out her tongue. Her expression was a bit innocent and apologetic. "I know you will be worried, but I really can't go back." Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's extremely cute appearance, Di Beichen could not help but feel his heart flutter. He was somewhat unable to restrain himself. If it was not for the unsuitable environment, he would have already kissed her. "Why are you following them?" Di Beichen's voice was a bit hoarse. His expression was dyed with a serious expression. Based on his understanding of Hongzhuang, if it wasn't something very important, Hongzhuang wouldn't stay here all the time. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but hold Di Beichen's hand tightly. Her delicate face was filled with excitement. Beichun, these people said that there are blood essence demon fruits in the depths of the blood grave abyss. They have a map in their hands and are preparing to search for them. I've been following them, wanting to know the whereabouts of the blood essence demon fruit. However, they are too cautious. Just now, a demon beast suddenly appeared, and I was accidentally discovered. With Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichun felt as if his heart had been ruthlessly chiseled by someone. An indescribable warmth and emotion spread throughout his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang was nowhere to be seen for several days, and her clothes were in a mess. He knew that Hongzhuang was a person who loved cleanliness. Every day, after cultivating, she would go back to freshen up. However, she had been following these people for his sake. All of this was for his sake. Wife, these people are very powerful. It's too risky for you to follow them. Di Beichun held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, his eyes filled with heartache. Even though it was just a casual glance, he already understood that these three people's battle prowess was beyond what Hongzhuang and Bai Shi could handle. Chapter 2298. Di Beichun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, which were as bright as the stars. Normally, most things would not be able to attract Bailey Hongzhuang's attention. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang was so agitated and worried because of the change in his physique. Thinking back to the time when Bailey Hongzhuang had helped him treat his legs, Bailey Hongzhuang had a reluctant look on her face. But now, she was a little woman who was completely considerate of him, and he couldn't help but feel happy. Back then, he had not given Bailey Hongzhuang the chance to leave. Now, with her by his side, this was a complete world. Beichun, they've already gone far away. Let's follow them. There are many mountain tunnels here. If we don't keep an eye on them, we won't be able to find them. With that, Bailey Hongzhuang pulled Di Beichun and prepared to leave. She had been following them for so long. She could not give up halfway like this. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to leave, she suddenly felt a force. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and threw herself into Di Beichun's arms. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled. She raised her head from the wide embrace and immediately met Di Beichun's deep and affectionate eyes. Beichun, without waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to speak, Di Beichun's hot lips had already kissed Bailey Hongzhuang's pink lips. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes instantly widened. She looked at Di Beichun in astonishment. Di Beichun's kiss was hot and domineering. His right hand covered the back of Bailey Hongzhuang's head. His tongue quickly attacked, not giving Bailey Hongzhuang any chance to escape. He had been longing for her lips for a long time. It was just that he had been with everyone in the team for the past few days and did not have much opportunity to interact with Hongzhuang. No matter what, he hadn't married Hongzhuang yet. If he entered Hongzhuang's room at night, it would undoubtedly damage her reputation. He would never do anything to hurt Hongzhuang. Even if he was going to marry Hongzhuang, he couldn't let people talk about him again. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly closed her eyes and responded to Di Beichun's kiss. She also missed him, missed his embrace, missed his warmth, missed everything about him. She had long been used to Di Beichun being by her side, used to his warm words, occasional hugs, and unexpected kisses. Di Beichun let go of Bailey Hongzhuang after he had absorbed enough of the sweetness. He looked at her flushed face, and his lips curled into a wicked smile. My wife is still so shy. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's face turned even redder. She punched Di Beichun on the shoulder. You're so bad. She didn't know what was going on either. Every time Di Beichun kissed her, she couldn't help but blush. She only felt that she was too useless. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's bashful look, Di Beichun felt even happier. He ignored Bailey Hongzhuang's weak punches and pulled her into his arms. My wife, I love you. His warm breath blew into Bailey Hongzhuang's ear. Di Beichun's deep and charming voice clearly traveled into Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was so considerate of him, Di Beichun only felt that with a wife like this, what more could he ask for? Bailey Hongzhuang, who was originally struggling, became limp after hearing Di Beichun's words. She quietly leaned on Di Baichen's chest and said in a muffled voice, "Me too." Chapter 2299. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen had left the cave, they chased after the trio. Previously, the three of them had searched everywhere for Bailey Hongzhuang. However, they had not been able to find any trace of her, so they could only leave quickly. Now that they had been delayed by Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, by the time they emerged from the tunnel, the three of them had set off once again. Based on their judgment, Bailey Hongzhuang's powers could not be compared to theirs. She had only been following behind them to find an opportunity to fish in troubled waters. Now that they had been discovered, Bailey Hongzhuang must have been scared out of her wits and had quickly left. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen had followed the trio's aura and quickly chased after them. Initially, it would not have been easy for Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Shi to deal with the trio based on their powers. However, with the addition of Di Baichen, this problem was easily solved. Even if they had been discovered, they were not afraid at all. A moment later, Bailey Hongzhuang caught sight of the three figures once again. Compared to before, the three figures were undoubtedly more cautious. Even their speed was constantly increasing. Clearly, they wanted to use this method to completely shake off their pursuers. Wife, can the blood essence demon fruit grow in an environment like this? Di Baichen walked as if he was taking a leisurely stroll in a courtyard. He was calm and natural. Even though he was following them, he looked as if he had a card up his sleeve. Prior to this, he had spent a great deal of effort to find out more about the blood essence demon fruit. However, this item was simply too rare and no one had been able to preserve it. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment before replying, "It's possible. The blood essence demon fruit grows in extremely hot places, and the conditions for its growth are very harsh. However, there's magma here. Who knows, it might just meet the conditions for the blood essence demon fruit to grow." A treasure like the blood essence demon fruit could only be found by chance. Not every environment like this could produce the blood essence demon fruit. Otherwise, the blood essence demon fruit would not be so rare. Now, as they got closer and closer to the rear, the temperature became hotter and hotter, and the environment became more and more suitable. It was precisely because of this that Bailey Hongzhuang believed that these three people's words were not groundless. Hearing this, Di Baichen's deep eyes flashed as bright as the stars. Under the control of Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills, it was now possible to ensure that his leg injury would not act up again. However, if there was a chance to completely change his physique, that would undoubtedly be the best. We're already at the back of the blood-ground abyss. It's not too far ahead, so we should be arriving soon, Di Baichen said in a deep voice. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. The three people in front of her had already stopped and were studying the map in their hands. "Boss, the map shows that the blood essence demon fruit is on the mountain in front of us." Little Fool looked at the map in his hand and compared it with the mountain in front of him. His expression was firm and serious. "All right," Boss revealed a satisfied expression. "That guy probably went back to get reinforcements. We'll take the blood essence demon fruit tonight to avoid any more trouble." "Boss, this blood essence demon fruit is guarded by an extremely powerful guardian beast. We have to be careful if we want to obtain the blood essence demon fruit. We've been preparing for so long. There must be a way to deal with that red flame lion king." Chapter 2300. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen's expressions changed when they heard the name of the lion. The red flame lion was as powerful as a level 1 blue realm cultivator. It was a dominating beast that was extremely difficult to defeat. "I didn't think there would be a red flame lion here. This will be a tough battle." Her dark eyes were shining with surprise. She had only seen the red flame lion once. She didn't think she would have the chance to see it today. "Wife, it seems like we have to lower our status today." Di Baichen's lips curled into a devilish grin. He raised an eyebrow and stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. Looking at this smile, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood, and her smile became a bit more sly. Do we count as a pair of thieves? Ha! Dibei-chan could not help but laugh out loud. His clear and bright eyes were like stars in the dark night, shining brightly, bright and dazzling. Looking at such a pair of eyes, shining like a river of stars, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt her heart thump. Even though she had been with Dibei-chan for so long, his charm was still irresistible. Wife, if you stare at me like that, I won't be able to hold myself back. Dibei-chan suddenly leaned close to Bailey Hongzhuang and said in a flirtatious tone. Bailey Hongzhuang froze. She lowered her head and said, I didn't. However, she couldn't help but sound guilty. Dibei-chan chuckled but didn't expose her. He grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand. A male and female thief is a male and female thief. Today we are going to steal it. After watching the three of them climb up the mountain, Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei-chan weren't in a hurry. They stopped at the foot of the mountain. The Red Flame Lion King was an extremely difficult demonic beast to deal with. Once a demonic beast reached this level, it would have gained intelligence. Even if it was not as smart as a human, it was not far off. Previously, they had already asked White Lion about this, and White Lion had given them an affirmative answer. That was the Red Flame Lion King really did exist on this mountain peak. As such, the three of them would have to expend quite a bit of effort to defeat the Red Flame Lion King. If they went up immediately, they might be mistaken as one of the Red Flame Lion King's allies. There was no need to waste their energy for nothing. After relaxing, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Dibei-chan with a big smile. Bei-chan, how did you find me in such a big place? Originally, she thought that it would be impossible for Dibei-chan to find her, because this place was too big and the terrain was too complicated. Ever since you didn't come back last night, I've been looking for you. Fortunately, I finally found you. Dibei-chan's voice was full of helplessness and love. This place was too big. He had to search for 3 days and 3 nights before he finally found Bailey Hongzhuang. However, the moment he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was safe and sound, he was relieved. So you've been looking for me for a few days? Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked. What about the team? Who asked my wife to run around so much? How can I be at ease if I don't find you? Dibei-chan reached out his hand and stroked Bailey Hongzhuang's nose. The love in his eyes was enough to melt ice. I've already talked to Xiao Feilin. He will lead the team for the next few days. After a few days of training, everyone's adaptability has improved. I was planning to train with you on the second day and let them train on their own. Chapter 23:01. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei-chan were talking, the sounds of fighting could be heard from the mountain peak. This place was at the back of the blood-ground abyss. Hence, there were very few people and even few demonic beasts around. Hearing the sounds, Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei-chan looked at each other. The other party had already started fighting. Master, let's go up and take a look, White Lion suggested. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. The Red Flame Lion King had already taken the 3 of them as its opponents. All they needed to do was to find a place to hide. In the next moment, the 2 of them and the Red Flame Lion King headed up the mountain peak. The closer they got, the more they could feel the shockwaves from the battle. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest could see the battle clearly. The Red Flame Lion King was like a divine beast of flames. Its body was red and its expression was ferocious. At this moment, the Red Flame Lion King was fighting furiously with the 3 people who wanted to steal its fruit. It had guarded the Blood Essence Demon Fruit for so long and had been safe and sound. As the Blood Essence Demon Fruit ripened, it became happier and happier. Once it consumed the ripened Blood Essence Demon Fruit, its strength would increase exponentially and it would undergo a complete transformation. It even felt that it might have the chance to transform into a human in the future. Not long ago, a group of people had tried to steal the Blood Essence Demon Fruit. They had been killed by the Red Flame Lion King, and only one of them had managed to escape. It did not expect that there would be more people coming now. Furthermore, these people were much stronger than the previous group. This was troublesome. Boss, this Red Flame Lion King has been guarding the Blood Essence Demon Fruit for so long. It has absorbed the essence of the Blood Essence Demon Fruit. Its strength is extraordinary. Little Fool had already been injured in the battle with the Red Flame Lion King. His face was pale, even though he already knew that the Red Flame Lion King was extremely powerful. It was only now that he realized that it was even more powerful than he had imagined. Even if the three of them worked together, they might not be a match for the Red Flame Lion King. This was really bad. Big Brother and Asan's faces were also very ugly. They had just seen the almost ripe blood essence demon fruit, but before they could even pick it, the Red Flame Lion King had already attacked. Now that the Red Flame Lion King was staring at them, there was no way they could make a move. The only way was to kill the Red Flame Lion King. That was the only way to get the blood essence demon fruit. However, how difficult was this? Bailey Hongzhuang sniffed the faint medicinal fragrance in the air, and her eyes suddenly brightened. Beichun, the blood essence demon fruit, is about to ripen. She had always been very familiar with medicinal herbs. Just by asking about the fragrance, she could tell that it was a coincidence. She didn't expect their luck to be so good this time. They didn't get the blood essence demon fruit. Di Beichun's nose was not as sensitive as Bailey Hongzhuang's. He could only smell the faint smell of blood in the air, but he could not detect the medicinal fragrance at all. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and analyzed. I'm afraid that the Red Flame Lion King came too quickly and they didn't make it in time. However, this is a good opportunity for us. While the Red Flame Lion King is fighting with the three of them, we can quickly pick the blood essence demon fruit and leave. Chapter 23:02. Master, we're just going to sit back and reap the benefits. Baishir's eyes shone with excitement. He loved to be able to obtain treasures so effortlessly. If the three of them were to find out about this, they would probably vomit blood in anger. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slyly. If we're careful, we might actually succeed. However, we still need a little trick. Although Bailey Hongzhuang, usually adhered to the principle of being open and aboveboard, sometimes she would do some sneaky things, which was also harmless. My wife, what's your plan? Just by looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's mischievous smile, Di Beichun knew that Bailey Hongzhuang already had a plan in mind. It's simple. We'll sneak to the other side of the mountain. The blood essence demon fruit is there. The Red Flame Lion King is already locked in battle with the three of them. It won't be able to determine the victor in a short period of time. We'll take advantage of this time to pluck the blood essence demon fruit and enter the chaos ring. This way, the Red Flame Lion King will definitely think that we're in cahoots with the three of them. Since it won't be able to sense our aura, it will definitely place all its hatred on the three of them. Although the three of them know that they've fallen into our trap, it won't be of any use even if they try to explain to the Red Flame Lion King. They'll definitely run away immediately, and the enraged Red Flame Lion King will chase after them. Once they've all left, we'll be able to leave as well. In a short period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang had already come up with a plan. This was the best way to reap the benefits. After understanding Bailey Hongzhuang's plan, Di Beichun and Baishir could not help but give her a thumbs up. Brilliant. Truly brilliant. My wife's intelligence is truly admirable. Di Beichun could not help but chuckle. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly adorable when she was being crafty. This was more in line with her age. Since you've all agreed, shall we take action? No problem. 2 men and 1 beast quickly launched into action. The elemental energy in the air had already been stirred up, and the aftermath of the battle was constantly spreading. Under such circumstances, the Red Flame Lion King, Big Brother, and the other 2 did not have the time to pay attention to their surroundings. Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had hidden their auras very well. A moment later, a blood-red fruit appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, the woman, and the beast. The blood-red fruit flickered with a sparkling luster. It was extremely red and emitted a demonic aura. With a single glance, he could tell that this was no ordinary fruit, but a treasure of heaven and earth. A faint fragrance wafted out from the fruit, making people feel refreshed. This is the blood essence demon fruit. Di Beichun's black whirlpool-like eyes flashed with a sigh. He had learned a lot about the blood essence demon fruit, but he was still shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. The treasures brewed by heaven and earth were indeed extraordinary. One could feel the abundant energy within the blood essence demon fruit just by sensing it. My wife, this blood essence demon fruit does not seem to have fully matured. If we pluck it now, will it harm its medicinal effects? If such a treasure was wasted just like that, it would truly be a waste of God's gift. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and said, "Don't worry, I have an idea." Chapter 23:03. Heavenly treasures would only be at their best when they are fully ripe. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were in no condition to wait for the blood essence fruit to fully ripen. However, the blood essence fruit in front of them was close to ripening. Furthermore, Bailey Hongzhuang had found a treasure in the Chaos Ring. As long as they could bring the blood essence fruit back, she would be able to cultivate it. Seeing how confident Bailey Hongzhuang was, Di Beichun did not ask any more questions. He immediately began to observe the situation. The three of them had already sustained some injuries, but the Red Flame Lion King was still full of battle intent. Di Beichun noticed that this Red Flame Lion King was much more powerful than the village chief's Red Flame Lion King. It was probably a Red Flame Lion King that was about to evolve. Against a demonic beast of this level, if one was not strong enough, one would not be able to gain the upper hand. Come to think of it, he could only sigh at how unlucky these three were. They had spent so much effort only to be the guide for this one time. Bailey Hongzhuang's movements were very fast. She had prepared some tools before, so she quickly dug out the blood essence demon fruit. Di Beichun, by sure, get into the chaos ring. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's orders, Di Beichun and Bai Shi immediately understood and followed Bailey Hongzhuang into the chaos ring. The three of them were trying their best to deal with the Red Flame Lion King. Their injuries were already very serious. However, it had not been easy for them to get here. If they were to give up now, all their efforts would have been for naught. Suddenly, the Red Flame Lion King's eyes turned red. It no longer cared about the three of them and charged to the side, because at that moment, it suddenly realized that the blood essence fruit's aura had disappeared. It had guarded the blood essence fruit for so many years and was very familiar with its aura. However, at that moment, the blood essence fruit's aura had disappeared. It had completely disappeared. The three of them still did not understand what had caused the Red Flame Lion King to fly into such a rage. However, a white porcelain bottle suddenly landed in front of them. Seeing this white porcelain vase, the three people's faces instantly turned ugly. Boss picked up the white porcelain bottle and carefully sensed it. He discovered that the aura on the white porcelain bottle belonged to the cultivator who was following them. "Damn it, that guy is following us again," the boss said with a gloomy face. As soon as he said that, Little Fool and Ah San looked at each other. They both had a bad feeling about this. "Boss, why is the Red Flame Lion King so angry? Could it be that the blood essence demon fruit was taken?" When they thought of this possibility, the Red Flame Lion King turned around and glared at them as if they were its sworn enemies. "We've been set up. Let's go." Even though the three of them were enraged to the extreme, the only thing they could do now was to flee. Previously, when the Red Flame Lion King was not enraged, it was already extremely difficult for them to deal with it. Now that the Red Flame Lion King had gone berserk, they might not even be able to keep their lives. As for the matter of the blood essence demon fruit being taken away, they could only swallow this loss. The three of them quickly ran down the mountain. However, the Red Flame Lion King had no intention of letting them go. It chased after them all the way. Clearly, it would not stop until it killed them. Chapter 23:04. The Red Flame Lion King had gone completely mad. It had been guarding the blood essence demon fruit for so many years, and it had finally gotten the chance to evolve. Now that the blood essence demon fruit had disappeared right in front of its eyes, it could not tolerate it. The three of them used all of their abilities to escape, but the Red Flame Lion King was too fast. It was not easy to escape. After the previous battle, the three of them had used up more than half of their elemental energy and were panting heavily. "Boss, why did that guy throw you a white porcelain bottle?" Little Fool was in despair. They had been running for so long, but the Red Flame Lion King was still chasing after them. He was almost out of energy. Hearing Little Fool's words, the boss looked at the white porcelain bottle in his hand. He had been so focused on escaping that he had forgotten about the bottle. "I don't know. There seems to be something else here, but it's most likely not something good." The boss looked at the white porcelain bottle in his hand and wished he could crush it. They had spent so much energy only to let the other party reap the benefits. How dare the other party be so arrogant as to tell him about it? How despicable. However, when the boss opened the white porcelain bottle, he couldn't help but be stunned. "Boss, what's wrong?" Little Fool asked when he saw the boss's stunned expression. "There are pills inside." The boss recognized the type of pills at a glance. They were pills for healing and pills for replenishing elemental energy. They were exactly what they needed right now. In the next moment, the boss handed the pills to Little Fool and Little Fool. "Quick, take them." Little Fool and Little Fool were stunned. When they saw the pills in their hands, they swallowed them without hesitation. To them, this was a life-saving pill. "Boss, did that guy predict that we would be in such a situation, so he gave it to us?" It should be. In that moment, the three of them were speechless. The reason why they were in such a situation was all because of that guy who had been following them. But now it was that guy's pills that saved them. At that moment, the three of them did not know how to feel about that guy. At least in their hearts, that guy was not as annoying as before. Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichun, and Baishur emerged from the Chaos Ring after the Red Flame Lion King chased after the three of them. Seeing that everything was going as she expected, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but smile. "My wife is indeed a genius. You managed to obtain the Blood Essence Demon Fruit without any effort." Di Beichun was full of praise. This situation was much easier than he had expected. "You flatter me." Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "Master, what did you throw at them earlier?" Baishur looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion. Previously, it had seen its master casually throw something out, but before it could see clearly, they had already escaped into the Chaos Ring. It had always been curious. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slyly. "It's just some pills. The Red Flame Lion King will definitely chase after these three for a long time. Without the pills, I'm afraid that they won't be able to keep their lives." Speaking of which, these three guys were really unlucky to have met her. No matter what, she was still very grateful to these three guys. If it wasn't for them, how could she have obtained the Blood Essence Demon Fruit? Chapter 23:05. With Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichun and Baishur finally understood. It was indeed a pity that the three of them had died just like that. "We don't know when the Red Flaming Lion King will return. Let's leave quickly." Di Beichun scanned his surroundings. Beasts like the Red Flaming Lion King were extremely sensitive. There was no telling when it would return. If they caught the three of them but did not manage to find the Blood Essence Demon Fruit, they would be in big trouble once they returned. Following which, the two of them quickly left the mountain peak and returned to the inn. Xiao Feilin and the rest were relieved when they saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had returned safely. Previously, when Bailey Hongzhuang had mysteriously disappeared, everyone was worried. "Junior Sister Bailey, where have you been these few days?" Everyone was worried that something had happened to you. Xiao Feiyu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with concern. In the entire team, there were only the two of them. Hence, Xiao Feiyu and Bailey Hongzhuang's relationship had become much closer. "I ran into some problems and was delayed for a few days. I'm really sorry for making everyone worry about me." Hearing this, everyone waved their hands and said, "Junior Sister Bailey, as long as you return safely, we can all be at ease." The team was filled with joy and harmony. In the following days, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun did not continue to train in the training grounds. Both of them had good reflexes. In order to save time, they decided to stay in the inn and train in the desert world. The time spent in the desert world was much longer than the outside world. In addition, there were countless beasts in the desert world. It was no different from training in the outside world. When Xiao He and Xiao Bai found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to train with them in the desert world, they were extremely happy. They were already used to training with their master every day. Now that they could continue to train together, it was undoubtedly the best thing that could happen. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's training on the stairway to heaven, her training speed increased again. Di Beichun could only absorb elemental energy, as usual. Hence, Bailey Hongzhuang was also using this opportunity to catch up with Di Beichun's training. No matter if it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichun, both of them were extremely talented. Bailey Hongzhuang's training speed was extremely fast, but so was Di Beichun's. As a result, it was hard to close the gap between the two of them, and now was the best time to catch up. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang and's training, the disciples were also immersed in their training. They spent most of their time cultivating in their respective sects and didn't have many opportunities to spar. Now, not only were there countless beasts in the Bloody Ground Abyss, there were also many cultivators who would start a fight if there was a disagreement. This was a good opportunity for them to increase their strength. Although they would often return with injuries, their strength would increase in an orderly manner. Hence, everyone was extremely happy. 2 months passed by quickly. Beichun, there's only half a month before the Battle of Zhuolu begins. I have to head to Limitless Palace. Bailey Hongzhuang calculated the time. They had been out for so long. Before the Battle of Zhuolu begins, she had to make a trip back to Limitless Palace. Chapter 2306. My wife, you must be careful on your journey. Di Beichun's eyes flashed with concern. The Battle of Zhuolu was just around the corner, and he had to lead his disciples back to the Tiangang sect. Bailey Hongzhuang gently nodded. Her ink-black, jade-like eyes flashed with a gentle and moving light. Her voice was soft and affectionate. Yes, Di Beichun, I'll see you at the Battle of Zhuolu. She had prepared for so long, and the Battle of Zhuolu had finally begun. During the Battle of Zhuolu, she would meet the Lan family in Lan Qingyan. After more than 10 years of intertwining fate now, it is time to rewrite it. My wife, I'll wait for you. Di Beichun reached out and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang into his arms. From the moment the Battle of Zhuolu began, it was time for Bailey Hongzhuang to face the Lan family. No matter what happened next, he would always stand firmly by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Thank you for waiting for me for so long. Bailey Hongzhuang rested her chin on Di Beichun's shoulder. She was reluctant to part with his familiar and warm embrace. Ever since she had been together with Di Beichun, she had missed him for a long time. He had always been waiting for her to openly reclaim her identity. Actually, her name was not Bailey Hongzhuang. Her real name was Lan Yishuan. Because of that slut, she had been living under a different name for so many years. From now on, she would let everyone know her true identity as Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Beichun had always known that Bailey Hongzhuang had an obsession in her heart. If she had not found her true identity, if she had not found her parents' dignity, no matter how comfortable her life was, there would always be a part of her heart that would never be at peace. That part would never be truly happy. He was willing to wait. He would wait until Bailey Hongzhuang no longer had a knot in her heart. He would let everyone know that he, Di Beichun, was going to marry the second lady of the Lan family, the granddaughter of the Sun Moon Palace's palace master and the granddaughter of the heavenly Dipper Sect's sect master. She had never been a nameless pawn and would never be unworthy of him. Di Beichun. On the contrary, it was Di Beichun who was lucky enough to marry Lan Yishuan. Baisher, Xiao He, and Xiao Bai could not help but cover their eyes when they saw how lovey-dovey Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were. Master and Di Beichun's relationship was getting better and better. Often, a casual conversation could make them blush and their hearts race. However, they were beasts with moral integrity. When faced with such a situation, They would take the initiative to cover their eyes. Of course, he would steal a few glances from time to time. Xiao Feiyu and the rest were shocked when they found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to leave the group. Junior sister Bailey, where are you going by yourself instead of returning to Tiangang Sec with us? It was already strange that Bailey Hongzhuang did not participate in the Battle of Zhuolu. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to leave the group, it was a little too strange. I still have some things to do, so I will leave for now. I will meet everyone again soon. Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face rippled with a smile like a lotus flower. She could feel everyone's goodwill towards her. She was very happy when she entered Tiangang's sect and was doubted everywhere. Now that she was completely accepted by everyone, she was very happy. Chapter 2307. Bailey Hongzhuang brought the three beasties and headed towards Limitless Palace. Now that she was strong enough to take charge, she didn't need to worry about any dangers along the way. It was because of this that Di Beichen was assured to let her head towards Limitless Palace. If it was in the past, Di Beichen would definitely not allow it. Just from this point, one could see how much she had improved. Master, the journey to Limitless Palace is very long. By the time we reach Limitless Palace, I'm afraid that the battle of supremacy would have already begun. Xiao Hei's expression revealed some helplessness. It was a pity that there weren't any flying beasts that could fly directly to Limitless Palace. They could only rely on their own two legs. Even though their current speed was much faster than before, they still needed to spend a lot of time on the journey. Bailey Hongzhuang flicked Xiao Hei's head and said, Xiao Hei, you're sitting on my shoulders now. The ones rushing on the journey are me and Bai Shi. You still have the cheek to complain? Cough, cough. Xiao Hei couldn't help but feel guilty. Master, I'm just feeling sorry for you. Who asked you to not have a pair of wings? Otherwise, you would be able to carry me and fly. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. Speaking of which, flying beasts were also the dream beasts of cultivators. If she could have a flying mount, she would be able to save a lot of time and trouble. However, this type of contracted beast was extremely rare. If she had the chance, she would like to find one. Instantly, the three beasties' heads drooped. They still had some confidence in other things, but when it came to flying, they really didn't have any ideas. During the process of White Dew, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't stay idle. She executed fulgurating shadows all the way and maximized her speed to the extreme. Movement techniques were very useful in battle. The more she used them and the more proficient she was at it, the better the effect would be during the battle. Now that they were rushing on the journey, she didn't have any chance to cultivate. She could only practice fulgurating shadows. Finally, Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at Limitless Palace. Compared to the trouble when she arrived at Limitless Palace for the first time, Bailey Hongzhuang now had a token. After showing it to the gatekeeper, she successfully entered Limitless Palace. Hongzhuang, you're finally back. The Battle of Supremacy Palace would depart tomorrow. I was worried that you wouldn't be able to make it in time. The moment Nangong Wu saw Bailey Hongzhuang, a smile had already occupied her face. Mistress, I'm sorry. I'm late. Nangong Wu waved her hand. I know you've been busy cultivating recently. It's fine as long as you make it in time. I haven't seen you for almost a year since we parted that day. Now, you become even more beautiful. Nangong Wu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in admiration. Bailey Hongzhuang was getting more and more beautiful. She was less immature and more beautiful. Di Beichen really picked up a big bargain this time. If he didn't grab Bailey Hongzhuang's heart early on, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang walked around in front of those young elites, she would definitely be the target of everyone's pursuit. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang blushed and said, Mistress, you're overpraising me. Yu Linfeng heard the news and came over. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, he revealed a comfortable smile. Hongzhuang, you really came at the right time. Greetings, Master. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed respectfully. Yu Linfeng was her most respected master. He had helped her a lot in her cultivation. Chapter 23:08. I came a little late. I hope Master will forgive me. It's good as long as you're here. Since I let you cultivate with Di Baichuan, I naturally thought that you wouldn't come early. Yu Linfeng's face was filled with a loving smile. He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichuan had a very good relationship. That was why he didn't let Bailey Hongzhuang return to Limitless Palace to cultivate. Looking at Yu Linfeng's knowing expression, Bailey Hongzhuang blushed in embarrassment. Hongzhuang, this time you're participating in the Battle of Zhuolu as the leader of Limitless Palace. You've already met a portion of Limitless Palace's disciples. They're the core disciples. There's also a portion of them who are also core disciples. It's just that they've been cultivating in seclusion, so you haven't met them yet. I've left a spot for you and told everyone about your identity. However, you'll have to settle the conflicts between the disciples by yourself. Yu Linfeng's voice was gentle and elegant. The meaning behind his words was very obvious. As the palace master of Limitless Palace, he could naturally help Bailey Hongzhuang dispel the disciples' suspicions and dissatisfaction. However, since Bailey Hongzhuang was a chosen successor, she naturally needed to have the ability to take charge and lead. It's always good for a young person to have more setbacks. If there's someone to help her settle everything along the way, then her improvement would naturally be small. Recently, Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't appeared. The disciples and young palace master had a lot of guesses. After all, he had never talked about this matter. He only announced it after the Battle of Zhuolu was decided. Moreover, he didn't mention Bailey Hongzhuang's name. He felt that this was a good opportunity to let Bailey Hongzhuang introduce herself. It was better than him, the master, introducing her. Linfeng, for this matter, why don't you introduce Hongzhuang to everyone tomorrow? It'll save us some trouble. The battle for the throne is an extremely important competition. If the disciples were to have internal strife because of this, wouldn't it affect Limitless Palace's results? Nangong Wu frowned slightly. It was obviously a very simple matter, but Yu Linfeng liked to make it complicated. Wu-er, I have my reasons for doing this. Listening to Yu Linfeng's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood Yu Linfeng's deep meaning. This was Yu Linfeng's test for her. Master, I will definitely handle this matter properly. Please rest assured. Along the way, her master had already paved the way for her. If she couldn't even convince her teammates, then she would be letting her master down. When she knew that she was going to participate in the battle of martial arts as the young palace master of Limitless Palace, she was already prepared to face all of this. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang accepted it calmly and didn't feel that it was a problem at all, the admiration in Yu Linfeng's eyes deepened. These days, he could feel that Bailey Hongzhuang had been cultivating on this stairway every day. It could be seen how hard-working she was. It hadn't even been a year since they separated. Bailey Hongzhuang had improved so much. He had a whole new level of respect for her. Originally, he thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have a hard time facing all of this with her strength. However, after sensing Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, he was completely relieved. Master believes in you. Chapter 23:09. Hongzhuang, you're going to meet Lan Qingyan after the Battle of the Deer, right? Nangong Wu's eyes suddenly flashed with an excited and dazzling light. She had always hated the Lan family to the core. It was just that Yu Linfeng normally did not interact with the Lan family, so she did not have the opportunity to make the Lan family unhappy. The relationship between Lan Qingyan and Bailey Hongzhuang was so deep. Once they met in the Battle of the Deer, the situation would be extremely exciting. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Her clear eyes were covered with a layer of enchanting luster, and her expression was more ruthless. After so many years, we're finally going to meet. She had hated Lan Qingyan for so many years, but Lan Qingyan had always treated her as a dead person. Presumably, when Lan Qingyan found out that she was still alive and not dead, the situation would be very exciting. Seeing the sudden change in Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu looked at each other. The hatred in Bailey Hongzhuang's heart towards Lan Qingyan's family was probably deeper than they had imagined. However, after experiencing what happened in the past, this hatred would be deeply rooted. Although Lan Qingyan has been famous for a long time, it's only because of the rainbow pearl. Hong Zhuang, a fake is a fake. You're the one who is truly chosen by the rainbow pearl. Once they compete, the real and fake will naturally be revealed. Nangong Wu's words were full of disdain towards Lan Qingyan. These years, although Lan Qingyan's reputation was very resounding, this woman didn't do anything outstanding. On the contrary, her arrogant and despotic reputation would occasionally spread. As a disciple of an aristocratic family, being arrogant and despotic was nothing. As long as one's strength was strong enough, that was enough. However, for such a person to be the next clan head of the Lan family, this was a bit ridiculous. If it wasn't for Lan Qingyan snatching away Bailey Hongzhuang's rainbow pearl with her personality, it was impossible for her to be recognized as the next patriarch. Yu Linfeng looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Hongzhuang, Master believes that you are the most outstanding." From the moment he chose Bailey Hongzhuang as a successor, he believed that Bailey Hongzhuang was the most outstanding. Even though your current strength may not be comparable to Lan Qingyan's, it won't be long before your strength surpasses hers. No matter what, you have to be confident in yourself and in the path of martial arts. No matter how terrifying the opponent is, it doesn't matter. As long as we don't give up, victory will definitely belong to us. You, on the other hand, were born to be the pride of the heavens. If you hadn't been delayed for so many years, your current achievements would definitely be the center of attention. Master always believed that no matter what tribulation heaven throws at us, it will always send us another gift. Tempering is the most precious wealth. These sincere and heartfelt words were full of Yu Linfeng's concern for Bailey Hongzhuang. Lan Qingyan was nurtured as the next clan head of the Lan family since she was young. The entire family used all their resources to nurture her. Naturally, her strength was needless to say. Bailey Hongzhuang experienced the shattering of her dantian, and her cultivation was delayed by so many years. Yet, she was able to catch up to this extent. Just this point alone was enough to prove that Bailey Hongzhuang was stronger than Lan Qingyan. However, catching up still required some time. Chapter 23:10. Feeling Yu Linfeng's deep concern, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was moved. A feeling of being touched quickly spread in her heart. Whether it was her master or her master, they were all sincerely concerned about her. She couldn't help but feel touched. She understood her master's meaning. She was worried that she would lose to Lan Qingyan after putting in so much effort to prepare. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart wasn't that fragile. For so many years, she had always been in a state of catching up. So what if she had to catch up for a longer time? Moreover, she had a lot of trump cards. She didn't know if she could defeat Lan Qingyan now, but she at least had the ability to contend against Lan Qingyan. Whether she won or lost, she wouldn't lose anything. On the contrary, Lan Qingyan was the one who couldn't bear it the most. Master, no matter what the result is, it won't damage my martial heart. With just a simple sentence, Bailey Hongzhuang had already answered all of Yu Linfeng's worries. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang in high spirits without the slightest bit of effort, Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu also revealed a comfortable and relaxed smile. Although the Battle of Zhuolu was important, they were more concerned about Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, tomorrow is the day we depart for the Battle of Zhuolu. Let me first introduce you to the situation of the Battle of Zhuolu, as well as the situation of our limitless palaces past Battle of Zhuolu. Yu Linfeng's expression was somewhat serious. The Battle of Zhuolu was a competition to measure the strength of each force. If they could obtain a good ranking in the Battle of Zhuolu, they would be able to gain more respect from other forces. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Previously, she only knew a little about the Battle of Zhuolu, but she wasn't very clear about it. After all, each force had a different view of the Battle of Zhuolu. Their arrangements were also different. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally couldn't use the situation of Tiangang's sect to lead the disciples of Limitless Palace. Deep Beichun didn't say much to her in this regard. Instead, they spent all their time on cultivation. Every sect and aristocratic family will participate in the Battle of Zhuolu. Of course, the medicine sect and the Yu family are exceptions. Because they were not proficient in martial arts, most of them would not participate in the Battle of Wulu. Since so many forces were participating together, there was naturally competition. Everyone wanted to obtain the best results. The situation of the battle for Divine Throne is slightly similar to the assessment that you participated in before, but this is the real competition between the geniuses. Bailey Hongzhuang listened attentively to Yu Linfeng's introduction. Every bit of information was very important. From Yu Linfeng's introduction, Bailey Hongzhuang understood the rules of the battle for the throne. As it turned out, the Battle of Zhuolu was also a small world. It was filled with various fortuitous encounters and treasures. These were all taken out by the various forces as a reward for the young cultivators. Although the items taken out by the various forces weren't the best, they wouldn't be bad either. After all, this kind of thing involved the issue of competition. Therefore, this Battle of Zhuolu was an extremely good opportunity for many cultivators who weren't successors. If they could obtain abundant cultivation resources, their cultivation speed would naturally increase greatly. Chapter 23:11. Every cultivator had their own number plate. What they had to do in the Battle of Zhuolu was to snatch their own number plates. The more number plates they snatched, the higher their ranking would be. Heavenly treasures were all treasures that cultivators could obtain and were not included in the results. The only thing that counted was the number of number plates they had. Not only that, when the results were tallied, it would not only include the number plates they had, it would also include the number plates they had as a whole. From these two aspects, each group's strength would be judged. Because of this, the Battle of Zhuolu did not only depend on an individual's battle prowess, but also the strength of the group. Hence, unity was extremely important. Every group would choose their successors to lead the group. Because of this, the disciples would be most convinced. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had yet to meet the participating disciples of Limitless Palace. On this point, she had already fallen behind the other groups. If she was unable to make everyone trust her in a short period of time and listen to her arrangements, then after the Battle of Zhuolu, the group would be a bunch of loose sand. Compared to the other groups, they would not be able to withstand a single blow. Every single cultivator who was able to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu was not weak. Hence, unity was extremely important. After understanding all the rules, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head. The rules were simple and clear. As long as one could snatch the number plate, that would be enough. Master, I understand. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes shone with a wise light. In her previous life, she had also understood some of the competitions. Many times, the more there were no rules, the more intense the competition would be. Because to snatch the number plate, there was no other way to calculate the results. Hence, this forced the groups to clash head-on to determine the winner. This was a direct confrontation between outstanding cultivators. It depended on strength and brains. In this way, whoever managed to snatch the number of number plates will be able to prove their strength from another perspective. Perhaps the closer one got to the center of the Battle of Zhuolu, the more intense the confrontation would be. Hongzhuang, there will be casualties in this Battle of Zhuolu. Hence, you must be extra careful. Although everyone hopes that there will be no casualties, as long as it is a competition between cultivators, casualties are unavoidable. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head. Master, don't worry. I will take good care of my teammates. This time, she was not participating in the Battle of Zhuolu alone, but as a whole. Every single cultivator was part of Limitless Palace's strength. They could not lose their lives in the Battle of Zhuolu. Hongzhuang, at times, the Battle of Zhuolu can be very fierce. Some sects had grudges against each other. Every time there was a battle for supremacy, it would be a bloodbath. There were also cases where an entire army would be wiped out. Battle of Zhuolu. Our limitless palace has not been established for long. Although we have a certain status and influence in the Shengxian continent, we have very few enemies and allies. This is not good news for you. As she spoke, Nangong Wu's eyes suddenly lit up. However, with Hong Zhuang as our leader, the Tiangang sect and the Sun Moon Palace are our allies, so there will be fewer problems. Chapter 23:12. The sun shone brightly and the sky was high. Today was the day that the teams would depart for the Battle of Deer. Hence, the participating disciples of Limitless Palace were all ready to depart early in the morning. At a glance, they were all in high spirits and full of confidence. However, when everyone saw the empty seat of the team leader, they couldn't help but mutter in their hearts. We're supposed to depart for the Battle of Deer today. Why haven't we seen the team leader yet? Could it be that the team leader hasn't returned yet? Then what are we going to do in the Battle of Deer? Ever since they found out that the team leader was the young palace master of Limitless Palace, everyone couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. This was because they had never heard of any news regarding the young palace master before this. However, since it was announced by the palace master, then it was naturally true. During this period of time, everyone was very curious about the identity of a young palace master. However, after waiting for so long, the young palace master still hadn't appeared. This made everyone feel a little anxious. To be able to participate in the Battle of Deer was an excellent opportunity for any cultivator. On one hand, they could represent the sect in the battle and win glory for the sect. On the other hand, they could display their strength on this big stage. Although most of the time, the person who obtained first place was the successor, there was also the possibility of an ordinary disciple appearing. No one was willing to give up on this possibility. However, the young palace master had yet to appear. If they didn't have a leader in the Battle of Deer, then wouldn't their team be at a disadvantage right from the start? Not only the participating disciples, but the other disciples of Limitless Palace also rushed out early in the morning. They all wanted to know who the young palace master was. Just as everyone was discussing, Yulin Feng and Nangong Wu's figures slowly appeared in everyone's line of sight. Behind the two of them, there was a young and beautiful figure. Greetings to the palace master and palace madam. Everyone bowed respectfully. Yulin Feng nodded slightly. His gaze then landed on Bailey Hongzhuang and said, Hongzhuang, you can return to the team. The moment Bailey Hongzhuang appeared in front of everyone, almost everyone's eyes were focused on her. Even though the palace master did not say much, from the way Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, everyone was able to determine that this person was the young palace master of Limitless Palace. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang had already changed into Limitless Palace's disciple uniform. She was wearing a light golden patterned robe that was noble and elegant, just like the buildings of Limitless Palace. The golden sunlight shone on her body, accentuating her nobility and peerless beauty. Her gorgeous face revealed a bit of heroic spirit, and when she looked serious, it was impossible for people to associate her with a vase. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang's aura had already revealed that she was definitely not weak. It's actually her. Pei Yifan stared at Bailey Hongzhuang with wide eyes, his face full of disbelief. Pei Yifan wasn't the only one who recognized Bailey Hongzhuang. Some of the disciples in the group also recognized Bailey Hongzhuang. When Bailey Hongzhuang went to the back of the mountain to cultivate with them, everyone was guessing the identity of Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, a cultivator who could be brought by the palace master and palace madam was definitely not simple. Chapter 23:13. Isn't this woman the one who came with Tiangang, sect's young sect master? So she's actually our young palace master? It's really hard to guess. I've only seen her come to the sect once. I rarely see her on normal days. She really keeps a low profile. We have to be careful in the future. Our young palace master will be our palace master in the future. Gazes of envy and worship fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's body. As a cultivator who didn't dream of becoming the master of sect one day, all along, Limitless Palace didn't have any news about their young palace master. On one hand, it was because the palace master was still very young. On the other hand, it was because the palace master and his wife didn't have any children. Under such circumstances, many outstanding disciples would do their best to show off their talents. They wanted the palace master and his wife to see them in a different light. No one would have thought that the palace master had already chosen their young palace master. This made some people feel discouraged. Bailey Hongzhuang saw Pei Yifan looking at her in a daze. Her lips slowly curved into a faint smile. When she was cultivating in Limitless Palace, Pei Yifan was the only one who showed some kindness to her. Therefore, she had a deep impression of Pei Yifan. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang smile, Pei Yifan realized that he was being rude. He retracted his gaze embarrassedly. Bailey Hongzhuang is my Limitless Palace's young palace master. Previously, I sent her out to settle some matters. That's why she's meeting with everyone today. Yu Linfeng's gentle voice slowly rang out. It clearly entered everyone's ears. After receiving Yu Linfeng's confirmation, everyone sighed. At the same time, they understood why Bailey Hongzhuang didn't appear before them. I believe everyone knows the meaning and danger of the Battle of Zhuolu. I hope that everyone can work together and achieve a good result in the Battle of Zhuolu. This is a stage that belongs to you youngsters. You have the courage to fight and fight. This is the courage of youngsters. You have to tell everyone the true strength of our Limitless Palace. Tell me, do you have the confidence? Yu Linfeng's voice was sonorous. This was a stage for the cultivators of various forces to vie for supremacy. Even though Limitless Palace had only been established in the Shengxian continent for a short period of time, their aura and confidence were not weaker than anyone else's. The disciples of Limitless Palace would not be any worse than the disciples of other powers. Hearing Yu Linfeng's words, the disciples all felt their blood boil. Previously, they were all thinking of achieving good results in the battle of vying for deer. But now, after hearing Yu Linfeng's words, a sense of honor for their sect quickly rose in their hearts. They were disciples of Limitless Palace. From a moment they participated in the Battle of Zhuolu, all of their actions represented Limitless Palace. They were bound together for good or ill. Yes, the disciples shouted one after another. They had worked so hard to cultivate for so long, just to let the entire Shengxian continent know their strength. Yu Linfeng revealed a look of satisfaction when he saw the excitement in the disciples' eyes. The vigor of the disciples of Limitless Palace would definitely not lose to anyone else. Very good. Yu Linfeng nodded. This is the true strength of our Limitless Palace's disciples. Chapter 23:14. For a moment, all the participating disciples felt their blood boiling. They were the heroes of Limitless Palace. For this honor, they were willing to give it their all. Before we enter the battle for deer, I have one more thing to tell everyone. Yu Linfeng's voice was less sonorous and more gentle. His gaze swept across Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. All of you are outstanding disciples of the palace. I hope that you will be able to achieve good results in the battle for deer. However, I hope that all of you will be able to return safely. Once these words were spoken, all the disciples were moved. All of them understood how important the battle for deer was to the palace. Every time the battle for deer's ranking was related to the palace's right to speak. If they ended up at the bottom, they would be ridiculed by everyone. However, under such circumstances, they never thought that the palace master would be most concerned about their safety. So, you can work hard, you can fight hard. However, all of this must be done under the premise of your own safety. If all of you are no longer around, then this ranking will be of no use to the palace. Everyone, do you understand? We understand. It was these warm and caring words that made everyone want to work hard to achieve good results for Limitless Palace. In fact, the palace master had always treated them extremely well. He did not have the same restrictions as the other sects. Even when the palace master appeared, He had an amiable look and did not put on any airs. Many people felt that Limitless Palace had only been established for a short period of time. However, they were very clear that Limitless Palace was not inferior to the other sects in any aspect. To be able to become a disciple of Limitless Palace was their pride. Then, everyone get ready to set off. Yu Linfeng's face was filled with smiles as he led the participating disciples towards the teleportation array. Every battle for deer was held at a specific location. Hence, every sect had their own teleportation array. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest followed closely behind the palace master and the elders. They were filled with curiosity towards the upcoming battle for deer. Very quickly, everyone arrived at the teleportation array. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang was no stranger to the teleportation array. However, there were still many disciples who were amazed when they saw the teleportation array. The battle for deer will last for 3 months. After 3 months, we will be here to pick you up. Yu Linfeng smiled faintly. The battle for deer was not long. It could be seen that the battle for deer did not have a large area. Within 3 months, there would be many clashes. The faces of the disciples were filled with anticipation. They had long heard of how amazing the Battle of Zhuolu was and how many treasures there were. If they were lucky, they would be able to raise their cultivation by quite a bit in the next 3 months. Now, everyone, enter the teleportation array. Grand Elder Gu Taihong's voice rang out. In the next moment, everyone walked into the teleportation array and felt a kind of energy surround them. Then, when they opened their eyes again, they were already in another place. This was a lush and verdant world. The sun shone brightly and the air was fresh. It was like an otherworldly paradise, making one feel comfortable. Chapter 23:15. We should be at the edge of the battle of Zhuolu now. The possibility of encountering cultivators from other forces isn't high. However, the closer we get, the higher the possibility of encountering them. Bailey Hongzhuang was very familiar with this situation. It was just like the assessment competition. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone had different expressions. Although they already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was the young palace master, they didn't have any understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang before this. They weren't familiar with her. Not only that, Bailey Hongzhuang looked extremely young. She was probably the youngest person in their team. At such a young age, her cultivation shouldn't be that strong. Under such circumstances, it was difficult to convince the entire team to listen to her commands. After all, as a cultivator, strength was always the most important. It was hard for a strong person to accept the orders of a weak person. Everyone knew that it wasn't enough to convince others with just one's identity. Only by displaying the ability to convince others would they accept it from the bottom of their hearts. In an instant, the cultivators had different expressions. They were all loyal to Limitless Palace and would listen to the palace master's orders. However, they couldn't help but wonder. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was able to become the young palace master of Limitless Palace, she must have something outstanding about her. However, I didn't know what it was. Master, this group of people are really unconvinced by you. Xiaohei understood after seeing everyone's expression. Although everyone knew about Bailey Hongzhuang's identity, they still had to show some of their true abilities. We expected this situation long ago. However, our master is someone with true abilities. She's not afraid at all. Xiaobai looked proud. In fact, their master's abilities had never been weak. Previously, there were so many people who were unconvinced in Tiangang sect because their master didn't intend to bother with them. Now that their master's strength was much stronger than before, she could definitely convince this group of people. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up everyone's expression. The Battle of Zhuolu would last for 3 months. They didn't need to be anxious. Rather than having conflicts later on due to differences of opinion, it was better to take advantage of this opportunity to completely eliminate this hidden danger. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly took a step forward and stood in front of everyone. I know that everyone doesn't know much about me and has some doubts about my strength and leadership. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's expression changed. They did have such an idea in their minds, but they did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to take the initiative to bring it up. Pei Yifan and the others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. When Bailey Hongzhuang taught Chu Yingfei a lesson, they had seen Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. Based on Bailey Hongzhuang's age, it was already very outstanding for her to possess such power. However, in the battle for the throne, everyone was not looking at potential but power. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang's strength had not been comparable to Pei Yifan's, but now, her strength should be comparable to Pei Yifan's. One had to know that Pei Yifan's strength was only average in the team. Chapter 23:16. For the next 3 months, we will all be teammates. As the team leader, I naturally hope that everyone will have the same goal and listen to each other's opinions. Every team participating in the Battle of Zhuolu is extremely powerful. If we don't work together and are scattered, it will be impossible for us to achieve a good result. So, if anyone is unconvinced of my strength, you can step forward now. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone looked at each other. None of them thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be so honest. Bailey Hongzhuang stood quietly at the same spot. Her expression was indifferent. Tiangang's sect was an extremely powerful sect. If she could defeat Xiao Feiyu and the other disciples, she was confident that she could defeat any disciple in the Limitless Palace team who challenged her. Although everyone had some opinions about Bailey Hongzhuang, they still listened to the palace master's words. So, they didn't know what to do at that moment. Since that's the case, young palace master, let me challenge you. In the next moment, a woman slowly stepped forward from the team and came in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Yin Aoshuang. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly recognized this woman. Yesterday, she didn't come to meet the cultivators in the team. However, Mistress introduced them to her and understood the characteristics of each of her teammates. Yin Aoshuang was ranked second in the team. She was cold and arrogant. Although she was a woman, her strength was not to be underestimated. Normally, Yin Aoshuang's reputation in the sect was very high. When the other disciples saw Yin Aoshuang stand up, their eyes also lit up. With Yin Aoshuang's strength, if Bailey Hongzhuang could defeat her, it would prove Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. Please. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. She extended her hand and made a please gesture. It was obvious that she was calm and composed about this challenge. When Pei Yifan saw Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent look, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't very strong. Now that she was facing Yin Aoshuang's challenge, there was a high chance that she would fail. At the very least, with his strength, it was impossible for him to deal with Yin Aoshuang. He had a good impression of Bailey Hongzhuang and didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to fail like this. However, this question was raised by Bailey Hongzhuang herself, so there was really no way around it. However, what happened next exceeded everyone's expectations. This was because the moment Bailey Hongzhuang revealed her cultivation, all the disciples' expressions changed. First rank of the Blue Realm. It was shocking that Bailey Hongzhuang had reached level 1 of the Blue Realm at such a young age. Pei Yifan's eyes widened as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. He was only at the 5th stage of the Blue Realm, and this was achieved with the help of the sect. Originally, he was very satisfied with his cultivation speed. Being able to reach such a cultivation at such a young age meant that his future was limitless. However, compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, his cultivation speed was simply too slow. Pei Yifan simply couldn't understand. How did Bailey Hongzhuang cultivate? In just 1 year, Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation had increased so much. It was too shocking. The dissatisfaction in the hearts of the other disciples gradually dissipated after they sensed the cultivation level of Yishuan. Chapter 23:17. As expected, Bailey Hongzhuang defeated Yan Aoshuang. Her speed had exceeded everyone's expectations. After just one exchange, everyone understood that not only was Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation high enough, even her battle prowess matched her strength. At the very least, they could not defeat Bailey Hongzhuang. The young palace lord is indeed the young palace lord. Her strength and talent are truly shocking. There will always be someone better than you. Every force will have some abnormal people. We have one in our palace too. No matter what, we can rest assured that the young palace lord has such strength. Although the disciples were deeply moved, most of them felt happy. The young palace lord's strength was so strong. She would definitely be able to lead them to achieve good results in the battle for divine throne. Young palace lord, I'm convinced. Yan Aoshuang clasped her hands and bowed respectfully to Bailey Hongzhuang. As a woman, she had the greatest opinion of the young Bailey Hongzhuang. However, from the moment Bailey Hongzhuang defeated her, she was already convinced. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, and her gaze fell on the other disciples. Is there anyone else who wants to challenge? At this moment, no one had any objections. They immediately bowed and said, "We will listen to the young palace lord's arrangements." Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes sized up the 9 disciples in front of her. After seeing that the doubts in everyone's eyes had disappeared, she finally showed a satisfied expression. In fact, she was also astonished by her own cultivation speed. If her master had not allowed her to cultivate on the stairway to heaven, she would not have been able to reach this step. She did not know what Lan Qingyin's cultivation level was, but she believed that she had the ability to contend with her. Since no one has any objections, let's set off. A light and moving smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's elegant and refined face. Compared to her previous seriousness, her current attitude was undoubtedly much more amiable. Any cultivator who could reach this stage had a mature sense of right and wrong. As long as they knew that she had the strength to lead the team, there was no need to worry about others having other thoughts. After all, from the moment they entered the Battle of Zhuolu, they were already a team. They were bound together for good or ill. If anything went wrong, none of them would benefit. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Bai Shi could not help but give Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up when they saw how easily she had resolved the matter. In just a few months, Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude had changed again. She had become more direct and efficient, or perhaps simple and crude. The attitude of a person in a superior position had completely erupted. In her previous life, Bailey Hongzhuang had such a style of doing things. Now that she was the young palace mistress of Limitless Palace, she had to act like a young palace mistress. At the very least, in this team, she would not allow anyone to question her. The group of people from Limitless Palace slowly walked forward. The surroundings were quiet, but everyone was still paying attention to their surroundings. The Battle of Zhuolu was not only a battle between cultivators. The demonic beasts here were also very strong. In addition, there were some traps or treasures here from time to time, so everyone was carefully looking around. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.